This is the Troll Patrol, live with Justin Freakin.
Welcome to the Troll Patrol, live. It's a freaking Thursday, but we're on a little early. We have a Joe Biden news conference getting ready to take place in about a half hour. In about a half hour, we are going to be taking the Joe Biden news conference from the NATO summit live. I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there. I don't think it's going to go well. Just saying. I do not think it's going to go well for Joe Biden. I need to... This bowl is not going to do it. I'm going to need something harder. I'm going to have to... You're getting ready to watch a violent train wreck. Now, here's the thing, is how long are they going to let him stay out there? How long is he going to take questions from reporters? If it was longer than 15 minutes, it would surprise me. I think he's done for. I don't think Joe Biden is going to be the Democratic nominee 3 weeks from now. He's not going to step down tonight. He's still flailing. He's still trying to make it happen, and it ain't happening. Clinically, Ducky, Flash, Warlord, good evening. Mitochondria. So glad to see you all. He's not stepping down tonight. I don't think it's tonight. I think he's going to come out and he's going to say it just like this. Let me be as clear as I can. I'm staying in the race. Gonna need the bong, aren't I? It's, I do not have anything to take a shot of. Nope, wait a minute. I take that back. I don't even remember what it is. I don't think it's whiskey. I don't think it's bourbon. Some kind of brown liquor. I think it's scotch. Might have been scotch. I asked Curiouser if she had any cooking sherry, and she said no. And I said, well, what kind of liquor do you have? And that was the only thing she had, was that scotch. I was making French onion soup, and I wanted some liquor to deglaze my Dutch oven with. So she brought me that liquor. So I do indeed have like bottom shelf fucking scotch in there, in like a mason jar that says piss. It is literally labeled piss. Literally labeled piss. Here, let's watch this before we get started here. We've got multiple things are going on. The Biden campaign is apparently polling how Kamala Harris would do against Donald Trump, which is probably a good sign if you're wanting Biden to step down.
The lead another 4 years is absolutely impacting the minds of voters right now. Our new ABC News poll with the Washington Post and Ipsos shows that 2/3 of Americans say President Biden should step aside, and that includes 60% of Democrats. Senior reporter Catherine Fallers has been following the numbers. So voters expressing big concerns, clearly, about Biden's age, but also former President Trump's. So let's talk about the numbers. I mean, there's not much of an age difference between the two.
No, there's not. And while this poll has a lot of numbers, a lot of comparisons, in terms of Trump's age, we know that 60%, at least in our poll, say that Trump is too old for a second term. This is a new
66 and 2/3%.
President Trump, our last poll, had him at 44% in the spring. You can see the graphic there. Of course, Biden is leading with that question. But the reality of it is that it is showing that voters do have a concern, and not just about President Biden's age. Of course, that's more concerning to voters, but also about former President Trump's. Of course, they're both old, as you say. It is having an effect on the minds of voters. We'll, of course, see if that plays out come November.
Does the poll show any good news for the president?
Look, it's not the greatest poll for the president. It does show that at least I think he has a 17-point lead in the personal favorability among voters. But other than that, there's not too much here. You can see his favor right there, his personal favorability, 42%, 34%. So he very clearly leads Trump in that category.
And finally, we just learned the Biden campaign is now polling on the possibility of a Harris candidacy. Our pollster surveyed voters on a hypothetical matchup between Vice President Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. What do those numbers show?
Yeah, those numbers were interesting. They were 49-46 Harris-Trump, so a slight lead there. But what's fascinating, and you just mentioned it, is we're learning now that the campaign...
Wow. Harris up 3 points on him.
The Biden campaign is doing their own head-to-head matchups internally. This is campaign internal polling. They're doing matchups against Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Trump. This obviously represents a strategic shift for the Biden campaign. It's raising all sorts of questions about whether Biden will step down or not now. The Biden campaign, for its part, says that we shouldn't think that this is just because Trump has been mentioning Harris more on the campaign trail. Kira?
All right, Catherine, thanks. And we've got special coverage, of course, of President Biden's press conference starting today, 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on ABC News Live.
Went up in about 25 minutes watching the Biden news conference. From NATO. This is from the NATO summit going on this week. Be taking the Washington Post here in just a little bit. Until then, we got a couple more stories we're going to do. And then, if you guys are good, you're going to get a police chase after. If everybody is well behaved, I don't think it's going to be a boring presser. I think this is going to be a shit show clinically. I do not think this is going to go well for Joe Biden. And this is going to be yet another nail in his coffin.
All hands on deck effort to try to save President Biden's candidacy. But NBC News is now reporting that, quote, several of Biden's closest allies, including 3 people directly involved in efforts to reelect him, say they now see his chances of winning as 0. And the likelihood of him taking down fellow Democratic candidates is growing. Late yesterday, Vermont's Peter Welch became the first Democratic senator to call on Biden to leave the race, insisting it's, quote, for the good of the country. At the same time, sources close to the Biden campaign say fundraising has taken a major hit since the debate, one calling the situation disastrous. And now Politico reports the campaign is going so far as to call individual Biden delegates to gauge their loyalty ahead of the August convention.
The reason I think he's stepping down is because the knives are out for him. We wouldn't be seeing all these stories if people around him in the administration and the campaign didn't want him to step down. That's why I think it's coming.
All this as Biden's most ardent supporters argue members of his own party are the ones damaging his prospects.
He has earned this nomination.
Shut up, Jamie Harrison.
He earned it because of the good work that he's done for the American people. And so we need to stick with him. Look at what the Republicans are doing right now. This guy has been convicted, Donald Trump, 34 times convicted felon, found liable of sexually assaulting.
About 20 minutes away from
to the White House.
Joe Biden news
Wake
conference.
Up, America, wake up, Democrats. It's time to stiffen your spines and knock your knees and be for your president. Stop with all of the hand-wringing. Let's focus on winning this election, not for
Dad Bowl,
but for the American people.
I want to bring in NBC's Julie Sirkin on Capitol Hill. Jonathan Lemire is Politico White House bureau chief, host of MSNBC's Way Too Early, and an MSNBC political analyst. Tyler Pager is White House reporter for The Washington Post. And Simone Sanders Townsend is former chief spokesperson for Vice President Harris and co-host of The Weekend here on MSNBC. So, Tyler, you're on the byline of the report that Democratic...
The Heritage Foundation got hacked by furries.
That Biden's team can turn this thing around. So what exactly does that look like?
Yeah, they want to see a path to victory. They are increasingly concerned about their electoral.
What a stacked lib panel indeed. Also, good evening, DJ Dub.
Battleground races. And so they want to see from Biden's top advisors a clear, data-driven strategy to recover from this politically disastrous debate performance in Atlanta. We're expecting them to press campaign aides today at that lunch for more details.
That's what I've always thought Anonymous was anyway, right?
Also expecting more members of Congress to call for the president to step aside. One of the holdups from them.
No, I'll hold off. I've got a fresh one packed. Let's
did not want to
wait for the news conference in about 20 minutes.
He's on the world stage with other global leaders, but as that summit comes to a close tonight, we could see the floodgates open again tomorrow and into the weekend for this critical juncture point ahead of the start of the Republican National Convention. And also, we're expecting to see more polls, internal polls, public polls.
The GOP convention starts on Monday.
How much damage the president is doing to their own electoral prospects. After all, these Democrats want to be reelected themselves, and they're not willing to stand by and support the president if he's going to damage their own electoral prospects because of voters' concerns about his age.
Julie, there's no doubt that the campaign is trying to convince Democrats to stay on board. But what's your sense of how many Democrats you're speaking with on the Hill can still be convinced?
Well, Chris, there's no doubt
I love you too, Dub.
Overwhelming, growing list. Those that told us this private in terms of their concerns privately are now coming out publicly. If they're not calling on Biden to exit the race altogether, they are at least coming close to it, or at least leaving the door open, as we heard from everybody from Speaker Emerita Pelosi to other Democrats we spoke to yesterday and today in the House and Senate, to Biden potentially changing his mind, even though the president has not indicated that. One of the first Senate Democrat that has made the decision to call on Biden to exit the race is Peter Welch. He is Vermont's junior senator, He's a first-term senator. This is someone who doesn't really ruffle feathers much. He works across the aisle often. He's a big ally of the president's, but he did make a surprise announcement last night in an op-ed that he wrote for the Washington
Post. Those Vermont senators.
And we talked about it today. Watch this.
Is there anything they could say to ease your concerns at this point, get you to reverse course?
It's a show me, not tell me issue. I think for Americans, it's not so much about individual senators or members of Congress. It's really about the challenge of the everyday campaign.
Can that be proven with one press conference? Or?
No,
it's
over the course of time.
Now, some senators are still waiting through the weekend to see what they hear from the president in his NATO press conference today, to hear from the campaign team that has descended on the Capitol a couple of feet away from where I'm standing right now, just outside of the Capitol. Campaign advisors meeting with Senate Democrats, trying to show them polling, show them data, convince them, according to a background memo that we had obtained, that Biden does have a path to victory in a lot of critical states against Trump, and more importantly, perhaps to vulnerable Senate Democrats that are listening to this presentation, that they could have a shot as well when it comes to defeating and keeping their vulnerable districts blue come November. You then have those like Senator Joe Manchin, who is keeping all of us on our toes. He's in that category of Democrats, Chris, that I mentioned, that are waiting, still giving Biden some time before making that decision. Here's what he said.
I think by Sunday, by this Sunday, this is my estimation.
By Sunday.
2 weeks, I said we have NATO in, NATO leaves today. This conference here is going on, this dialogue back and forth. And then I think everyone will be talking over Friday, Saturday, and by Sunday you should have some idea of what's going on.
I think certainly a lot of Democrats are in that camp, waiting for the leaders to be out of town before they make their decision public. A source tells me, Chris, that we're going to see more names come out today, potentially tomorrow as well, and of course through the weekend, especially as they're talking to constituents back home in their districts.
So, Jonathan, if we take a step back, it seemed earlier this week there was at least a period of time where no new people came forward saying they wanted Biden to step down. Maybe it seemed like things had calmed down. Clearly, that's not the case as we head into that press conference tonight. What's your reporting on, is the dam going to break?
Yeah, well, first of all, Chris, to your point, I've spoken to a number of Biden aides who said they woke up yesterday morning feeling pretty good about where they stood, believing they had managed to fend off most of the calls for President Biden to be replaced atop the ticket.
Are you saying like you've seen John Wick 2, 3, and 4, but you haven't seen the first one? Is that what you're saying politically?
When pressed whether or not she still wanted President Biden to remain atop the Democratic ticket, and then that was followed by George Clooney, the actor.
You don't fuck with people's dogs.
His letter asking Biden to step down.
It's a fun romp.
Lawmakers, including our first senator. There is sort of an anxious anticipation around the Biden campaign.
It's just mindless fun.
You just mentioned a very important meeting at the Senate right now. Some top aides there trying to calm down.
Gangsters kill Keanu's dog. He goes on a rampage.
It does say, it acknowledges.
That's the setup of the movie.
It's done to the president's polling, to his political standing because of the debate, sort of a candid assessment there.
John Wick 2, we're still pissed about the dog, so let's go kill some more
They also
people.
acknowledge for the first time they have a clear best path, and that's those 3 old blue wall states of Wisconsin, Pennsylvania.
I don't remember where I've left off. I don't remember if I've seen the third one.
More or less, in order for the president to...
I know I've seen a couple of them.
And there are going to be all sorts of eyes tonight on this news conference here. I'm at the NATO summit site in Washington. That news conference slated for 6:30.
Spoiler alert, also, if you didn't know that.
Not everything he said.
That's pretty much the whole movie.
Stumble will be looked upon as a potential sign of weakness or strength. But even Biden aides tell me they expect him to do well, but they know that even a strong a strong news conference performance won't silence all the chatter. It won't silence all the...
I don't think it's going to be a strong performance. I think he's going to...
Tomorrow in Michigan, the president heading back on the road next week.
Faceplant yet again.
A lot of Democrats and a lot of Biden aides frustrated this is going on. Certainly the Biden camp wants this to be done. They're telling me the president remains committed to being in this race, and they want to start drawing the contrast again with Donald Trump. They want to let Trump dominate the headlines, which they think that will be good for them.
I've never seen
Taken. That could start in the next couple of days when he names his vice presidential pick and has the Republican National Convention next week. But if this drama with Biden continues, it'll overshadow perhaps even that.
So, Simone, if you're in that meeting right now, if you're a member of the Biden campaign and you're trying to convince these skeptical senators, hold your fire, what's your best argument?
Sparkles, welcome.
The argument is
we've got Joe Biden press conference in about 15 minutes.
And you can have qualms about how open you think that process was, but there was a primary process, and Democratic voters cast their ballots.
He is not stepping down. This is the end of NATO.
Talking to and asking the senators.
This is his last-ditch effort to save his campaign.
They heard from the voters in their states, because the senators, thanks to my former boss, former Senator Bernie Sanders, the senators and members of Congress, they no longer have a vote on the first ballot when it comes to convention. They're all super delegates. They are unpledged delegates, and unpledged delegates do not have a vote on the first ballot. And so I do think that there's a fundamental misunderstanding of the process here, but also the Biden campaign team has to understand that the concerns that are being raised by
here's what you can expect at the news conference tonight.
Directly tied to what is going to happen at the ballot box for these down ballot races.
Well,
and
can I interrupt you there for just a second? Because we just heard from Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, and he said that the conversations about Biden are clear-eyed and ongoing. And I want to play for you him being asked if Biden is a liability, and I'll pick up your answer on the other side.
Are you worried that Biden is a liability for your most vulnerable members?
No.
What do you make of that?
What do you make of that?
That House Democrats specifically are looking at the generic ballot, and the generic ballot still has House Democrats. When it comes to Democrats and Republicans, House Democrats besting Republicans, House Democrats, and also I would argue a number of these Senate races. And if you look at state polling from Pennsylvania to Nevada and even in Wisconsin, those elected officials who are on the ballot, those are all incumbencies. Folks are running ahead of the president, and so
I'm holding on. We're gonna get nice and toasty.
I understand.
Here in about 10 minutes.
Numbers to slip, because think about it. It's the House that certifies elections. If Joe Biden does win, if he stays on the ballot, which he says he is going to do thus far, and he wins re-election, and Speaker Johnson is the speaker, do you think he's going to certify that election if it's close? Those are real questions that Democrats are asking themselves, and those are the stakes. It is the House on January 6th that will certify the election, and it will be the members who win on November 5th that will be sitting in those seats. So the concerns are understandable, but...
Oh, yeah, we're going to be flipped come this January 6th. A Democratic administration in the White House and a Republican in the House, as opposed to in 2020. It was an outgoing Republican administration and a Democratic-controlled House.
But then again, Chris, I've talked to a lot of, again, delegates, DNC members, and they are frankly frustrated. I talked to 2 caucus chairs just this morning of 2 of the largest caucuses of the Democratic National Committee, and they are frustrated with elected officials in Washington who do not understand the process, they say, who are speaking out of turn and have not picked up the phone and called them to ask them what their membership is saying, because their membership, they say, is still with the president.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell.
Oh, you're not even in a studio. You're in your bedroom or something. Wait, you're Tim Russert's son? I don't like you. Fuck you, Luke. Shut up. He hits the microphone. That's why I have to, like, he needs to get up or he needs to lay the fuck down because he keeps, like, he keeps wanting to push his ass up and it hits the mic. Damn cat. Would not sleep with me this morning. I kept wanting to go back to bed. Tried to get him to lay with me. No, he wanted to go look out the window. Licking your knees. I'm petting Smokey's head. There we go. Yeah, baby. He's a sweetie. So he got up and went over to his box. And I'm like, well, damn it, cat. Like, you're always... I get up and I start trying to do work, and you will want to be in my lap. And you will want to... If I'm doing voiceover, he'll hop up, he'll hit the microphone. It's so annoying. But I love you. I can't get too mad at you. Anyway, Taylor Swift is apparently speaking out about Project 2025. What? Why are we... Legion Aod, what's up, my friend? How are you? Thank you for being a freaking follower. Let's hear from Tay Swifty about Project 2025.
Warning signs for American democracy. Tonight, harrowing new threats from right-wing leaders saying out loud what the vengeance and the retribution that Trump vows is going to look like. Latest warning is from a notorious conservative figure who rose to prominence by justifying some of the most heinous and controversial actions undertaken by a modern Republican administration. During the height of the war on terror, the Bush-Cheney team looked for legal support for torture policies, and they got it from this man,
John Yoo.
The DOJ lawyer who authored the infamous torture memos. It launched a scandal, triggering investigations, and eventually drawing bipartisan and global rebuke. The Washington Post dubbing it one of the worst ideas of the Bush era. That lawyer, John Yoo, is now bringing his same right-wing lawless approach to the Trump era. Except this time, it's not about justifying torture on terror suspects. He's trying to justify Trump's attacks on domestic political rivals. At a conservative conference this week, Yoo calling on Trump to, quote, retaliate against Democratic leaders who he falsely claims, without any evidence, launched politically motivated probes into Trump, saying, quote, you have to retaliate against them in exactly the same way until you get some deterrence if we're not going to become a banana republic. Fortunately, we're going to have to use banana republic means. So,
wow.
An isolated comment. You saying something very similar recently on Fox News.
Republican DAs indict Hunter Biden or indict Joe Biden, just in the way that blue state DAs have been indicting President Trump, because that's the only way I think you can get
Hunter Biden did get indicted.
Stop abusing the legal system, to stop breaking the norm.
You're talking about abusing the legal system. I'm so fucking tired. My entire lifetime has been like Ollie North being a scapegoat for the rest of the treasonous Reagan administration, and Reagan not being put on trial. Nixon not, before I was born, Nixon wasn't put on trial, pardoned by Ford. I have watched Bill Clinton be completely skewered over a fucking blowjob and lying about it, while fucking Bush got away with war crimes. The double standard is insane. And then these assholes act like there's a double standard against them.
Norms that they have. Now they're so worried because once they've destroyed all these norms in the way they've gone after Trump, they realize Republicans can turn around and do the exact same things to them. Look, I don't want this norm to have been broken. I wish we were not using the criminal justice system to interfere in politics. But how else could you deter Democratic DAs from doing the same thing?
So don't do what Jesus would do. Don't love thy enemy. Play the long game.
Jesus wasn't running for president.
Wu is the most credentialed legal voice on the right yet, amid a chorus of MAGA figures pushing retribution.
We now find ourselves struggling with people who have evil intents. Get mad at me if you want to. Some folks need killing. It's time for somebody to say it.
We're going to come after you. Whether it's criminally or civilly, we'll figure that out. But yeah, we're putting you all on notice.
We are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
This comes as MAGA lays the groundwork for Trump to reshape.
Bend over and take it, guys.
His image. The right-wing Project 2025 calling for the end of an independent Department of Justice, instead placing it under Trump's total control, allowing him to launch the kind of investigations he and allies like you are calling for.
Like you.
Trump knows how toxic this all
I think she means John Yu, not you as
recently tried to distance himself from it. Today, though, ABC News reporting on the extensive links between Trump, his campaign, and Project 2025. Democrats now spotlighting this toxic GOP agenda as part of their Decision 2024 messaging. And it just might be working. The Biden campaign highlighting this chart that you see on your screen. It shows Google searches.
If you're on Twitch and you're not subbed, I'm going to hit you with ads right now so you don't miss any of the Biden news conference.
That's
if it goes longer than 30 minutes.
The yellow line is the NFL. You can see searches for Project.
I doubt it goes longer than 30 minutes.
The top, that blue line, now surpassing searches for Taylor Swift and the NFL. Joining me now is Sky Perryman, the president and CEO of Democracy Forward, a progressive legal organization.
They honestly, politically, they honestly have no clue that Karl Marx advocated for personal ownership. They have no clue that Mao Zedong advocated for personal gun ownership.
And back with us, David Jolly, former Republican congressman from Florida and an MSNBC political analyst. My thanks to both of you. Sky, first to you. I want your reaction to what we just showed, which is incredible, right? Project 2025 being searched more than Taylor Swift. And then I want to get your response to what you're hearing from John Yoo, who's calling for Republicans to retaliate. That's his word, retaliate against Democrats.
Oh, apparently this story has nothing to do with Taylor Swift responding to 2025 or Project 2025. It's about the fact that searches for Project 2025 are outpacing Taylor Swift.
Well, it's important that Project 2025 is getting the attention that really it deserves, because it is an unprecedented attempt to pull power from the American people and to really compromise American freedoms and American democracy. On the issue of retaliation, the Project 2025 lays out a retribution agenda itself. It would seek to make the Department of Justice, which is a department, and the employees in that department that have...
It's not Lester anymore.
For impeachment and other proceedings.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel.
But why is he in his bedroom? I'm pretty sure the MSNBC ones used to have Lester at the end of them as well. Pretty sure. Washington Post has not gone live yet. Go to CBS News here, see what we got going on. CBS News on commercial break right now. We can take the White House, but the White House fucks up their audio a lot of times. Just saying. I've done this long enough to know. One time we watched the White House feed of the Conference of the Americanas or whatever, and the audio was horrendous. I know exactly what I'm talking about, son. They aren't live yet either. Shit.
Ceasefire talks brokered by the UN began Thursday in Switzerland, but only one side of the country's warring parties showed up.
CBS News isn't even waiting on it.
The Sudanese army and the paramilitary.
Doing a rundown. They find out what that news be doing. We aren't doing that tonight. We find out what that Biden be doing. Okay, Washington Post is saying 7 o'clock.
Correspondent Rhonda Colvin. We're also joined by senior video journalist J.M. Rieger. James, I cannot overstate how much pressure is on Joe Biden tonight. This feels like we're on this knife's edge right now. Explain why.
The presidency hangs in the balance. This is the most important news conference that Joe Biden has had in more than half a century of public life, including the 1987 news conference where he dropped out of the race. There are 6 constituencies that Joe Biden needs to reassure.
Well, this was originally scheduled for 7:30, and it got moved up to 6:30.
To get to Democratic lawmakers who are panicking. We'll talk more about that in a second. But even today, this afternoon, half a dozen House Democrats have called on Biden to drop out. 17 House Democrats have now called on him to leave. Another half dozen have drafted statements and are planning to send them out if they don't think that Biden measures up during tonight's news conference. Biden needs to assure his own staff, which is something wild to say, not just at the White House, but on the campaign. They are dispirited, they're pessimistic, they don't see a path to victory. He needs to reassure donors. George Clooney got a lot of attention for
George Clooney.
But I hear from campaign sources that the money is drying up. It's not just big dollar, but small dollar donations too. He needs to get to the Democratic delegates who he actually needs to vote for him to secure the nomination in Chicago in 6 weeks' time. And he needs to reach the majority of Americans who don't think he's up for this job. Ultimately, the voters who will decide in November if he stays on the ballot. Finally, he's speaking at the end of this NATO summit. He is literally standing on the world stage. Foreign leaders are watching. They're taking the measure of him and of the United States. And it's not lost on Joe Biden that there are more than
Nix, good evening.
Still in Washington as he really
Fox, good evening.
Test yet. This is the biggest political crisis of his presidency,
Rhonda,
by far.
Yeah, so this is the end, the culmination of this NATO summit.
No, I think it was 7:30 and it got moved up to 6:30, DJ Dub.
The focus be on the interaction that President Biden has had with these world leaders all of this week, and yet we're talking politics. Just, take a moment and explain to someone who might be wondering why this focus is on him right now.
Yeah, the stakes are really high right now. This has gotten to the level of where everything Joe Biden does, whether it's a speech, whether it's off-the-cuff remarks, everything is being scrutinized because of this question of if he is fit to continue being the candidate or the presumptive nominee for the Democrats.
You guys are good during this press conference.
Talked about lightly.
You got a police chase for later.
Fever pitch. And to your point about the real reason we're all here is because of the NATO summit. That's the
Everybody be on their best behavior.
solo presser. And I was thinking, I was on the Hill on Monday afternoon before the members flew back and started their week in Congress, and I was walking from the House side to the Senate, and I saw...
For the love of God, I wish that if we'd had to put up with Joe Biden,
around some of the receptions, because
it had been in 2016,
this week,
and we were coming to the end of his presidency right now.
If it wasn't for this news on Biden, this NATO summit would really be a really big deal. Ukraine funding and assistance is something that these world leaders were gathering to talk about. That's a pretty big deal. But right now we're in a moment where people are tuning into this to watch and see what Joe Biden says, what he does, and that's what this moment is about right now.
JM, you know, it seems like we keep saying this is a high-stakes moment. We were saying that when Biden and Trump debated 2 weeks ago. We said it last Friday as Biden had his first televised interview after the disastrous debate. And we're saying it.
Yeah, unfortunately, Shelley Duvall died earlier today.
Keep mounting here. Why do we keep kicking?
I found out from memes.
We say this is now, again, a pivotal moment.
President Biden has not done enough.
Thought about it. I was like, I might watch Popeye over the weekend.
Quell the dissent, if you will, the dissent in his party. And the concern is,
I probably haven't seen it in 25 years.
Among Americans. The Washington Post polling average only has this race, Biden against Trump, shifting a couple of points post-debate, which normally wouldn't be that big of a crisis. But the fact that we're still talking about this debate 2 weeks now after it happened is miraculous in a lot of ways, Libby. And this is a race that
is miraculous
going to be decided.
Do you know what the word miracle means?
States by very, very narrow margins, perhaps even narrower margins than decided the 2020 election in those states. So the reason we're still talking about this, and the reason
you ever seen Popeye?
These kind of granular shifts in this
with Robin Williams and Shelley Duvall,
because this race is so tight. It's so tight, even after the debate.
I probably could stream that. It was a flop.
They're having a lot of questions about whether Joe Biden's the best person to beat Donald Trump.
I don't know if it was a great movie.
This press conference that we're about to have at the top of the hour here, Libby, is the turning point of the Biden re-election campaign.
Rhonda, let's talk about the pressure that Joe Biden faces from Capitol Hill, where you've been all week watching.
I mean, it's Robin Williams. You can't go wrong with Robin Williams.
Very carefully, many in private, some in public. Why are we watching the lawmakers so closely, and what are they saying?
Well, right now, what we've seen all week, what I've seen going up to the Hill, staking out the meeting that House Democrats had on Tuesday to talk about the continued candidacy of President Biden.
We know it's delayed. We've been watching this.
In the public forum, at least, House Democrats are saying they're going to stand by him. They are saying that they want it to be his choice. You're also seeing different levels of enthusiasm. You're seeing some who aren't all that enthusiastic. You're seeing some who are coming out and saying, yes, he's our guy. And then you're also seeing some kind of step back and have very muted discussions about this. But publicly, we are seeing that the majority of the caucus at this point.
You're not real news, you're fake news.
Has said that they will support him. That could change, and that's why something like tonight is really important.
Fake news warlord.
A lot different tomorrow morning. We just don't know. There is a high level.
Why? Why do you guys bread ham?
Anxiety of returning to a Trump presidency. Think about.
Oh, it's going to be nothing but gas, Ponder Monkey.
Who were organizing the Russian election interference investigation in 2016 after the former president won. The two.
This is going to be an absolute train wreck.
Acquainted with a Trump presidency, and they feel they do not want to return to that, and they don't want to risk it. They're also doing a lot of, it's almost like a political.
Stop calling me boomer. I'm not a boomer.
Their calling card this whole time.
I'm not even Gen X.
We are the party of unity, stability, while the Republicans in the House have been in disarray.
Oh, I think that's under Ponder.
Lose that. So that's why you're seeing leadership like Hakeem Jeffries say that Biden is still going to be their person until he's not. We also know that, House Democrats don't want to give an opening to House Republicans. This week, Chairman Comer, who is over the House Oversight Committee, they've subpoenaed Biden's aides in the White House to come to the Hill, give a deposition, and to prove what they think is a cover-up of covering up the health situation of President Biden. So you see
the political situation we find ourselves in.
But overall, right now, we are seeing the majority of public responses from House Democrats be favorable.
I don't think you're going to vote Biden, Snicks. I think you're going to vote Harris,
side, a little bit more of a
Bashir.
tepid response. We're seeing senators kind of be in this wait.
My pick is going to be Kamala Harris on the top of the ticket.
But there
it's
is
going to be Kentucky Governor Andy Bashir
Senator Blumenthal, who did discuss his concerns earlier this week
as the VP.
Biden continuing on. He was in a special caucus meeting that they had off Hill today with Democrats, where the Biden campaign officials came. They went over data saying this is the way we are going to win in November.
Now here's the thing.
Senator Blumenthal.
Some of my concerns are allayed. Some others have been deepened. I need more of the kind of analytics that show the path to success. More important than my concerns are the questions that have been raised by the American people, that Donald Trump is an existential threat. Joe Biden has to go to the American people, not just in one meeting, one press conference, one speech, but consistently and constantly. Tonight will be important.
So you see,
Mom did his ever picture day.
Is that tonight is very important.
Are you calling Blumenthal sexy towards you?
Where they go next? There
like
is
that
just
side
such a level
profile.
of uncertainty on the Hill right now. Of course, James laid out that there.
Now the RNC is next week. The Republican National Convention starts on Monday. If you are Joe Biden and you are going to drop out,
Right now in territory where we just don't know where these lawmakers are going to go.
do you wait until the day of Trump's speech?
Now, from where Biden
Do you try to upstage him? Because like
Washington Convention Center just down the road
stepping
here,
aside,
that's where much of the native
kind of takes all the headlines from
So,
the
Yasmin,
RNC.
Give us a sense of like the TikTok, as they say, of how things are unfolding and when we might hear Biden speak.
So right now we are standing outside the room in which he's going to do the press conference. We're obviously very much delayed. There is a lot of anxiety about when it's going to start, how many questions he's going to take, who he's going to call on. This normally President Biden does press conferences where he takes anywhere from 2 to 4 questions. They're pretty short. Often the people are picked ahead of time. This time, we really have no idea how many questions he's going to take. It could be 4, it could be 10. We know he's under pressure to demonstrate that he can do a full-length, sort of freewheeling press conference.
I'd vote for Monica.
I'm not sure which direction it's going to head in, but we know that he's under pressure to show he can do this. And it's coming after a really full day. So I think everyone will be sort of eagerly watching to see how energetic he appears, how he's able to parry back and forth.
He's had a full day.
And all I can say is I have never seen this much anticipation ahead of a press conference before.
Yasmin, we haven't.
Little Tiger's going to be exhausted.
Just a little while ago, President Biden had a verbal stumble and he called President Zelensky Mr. Putin, President Putin. He corrected himself afterwards, but what was the vibe after something like that happens?
Well, I wasn't in the room, but I had heard that there was an audible gasp after that happened. Of course, they tried to sort of play it off and quickly recover. But I think it just highlights how, these types of verbal slip-ups have happened before, and I think people normally look past them or don't put too much stock in them. It's been very, very different this week at NATO. Foreign leaders are scrutinizing every one of Biden's moves. They're exchanging notes on what he's like in private, what he's like in public, and trying to figure out, is the White House making certain accommodations? Is that just a normal thing that would happen regardless of what's happening right now? So I think it just underscores the amount of anxiety and scrutiny there is of what he seems like. Does he seem okay? Is he going to be able to take on Trump? Because the thing they fear most, of course, is Trump winning because he's threatened to shred the alliance. So I've never seen the president under this much scrutiny before.
All right, Yasmin Abutaleb, thank you so much. Yasmin will be in that press conference this evening. Stay with the Washington Post. We will bring it to you live as soon as it begins.
Help us, China.
In as soon as 15 minutes, but we will keep you posted. James, you've been thinking this week about what reporters can and should ask. What would you ask if you were in that room tonight?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really interesting. The White House has sort of half-jokingly called this a big boy press conference. Karine Jean-Pierre said that. John Kirby, the other spokesman, said that. And basically what they mean by that is no topic is off limits. they sort of had signaled that maybe Biden would take 6 questions. There was a lot of pushback from White House reporters saying that's not enough. He really needs to take, marathon amount of questions to show that he has the stamina to show he can go back and forth. But he also,
yeah, why would you phrase it that way?
In reality, I think
we're already making fun of you for like being up past your bedtime.
Among a lot of Democrats, Rhonda and I have been talking to on the Hill.
And that was on ABC Friday night, a 22-minute interview.
Exactly. Was that he didn't really seem to grasp that. It feels like he hasn't really heard the complaints from a lot of people, that he doesn't really understand that 8 in 10 Americans think he's too old to be president. He admits he had a bad debate, but he was very dismissive of questions about taking a cognitive test, for example, saying, I take a test every day, that's the job. But a lot of people feel like he's not passing that test every day. So I think I would want to get at, there's obviously the question of can you win, but I don't think he's going to answer that straightforward. I think the second question is, can you govern for 4 more years? If you're being really stubborn right now and refusing to admit that you're slipping, how do we know that if you do win the election, and it'll be close, that
it's sad it'll be close.
Refuse to step aside even as you slip more and more. You'd be 86 years old in January of 2029 when your term ends, and sort of force him to answer some of that, to kind of, one of the other things he said during that ABC interview.
It's those kind of stories, DJ Dub, that makes me think he's leaving.
All the public polls show.
It's people in his administration are leaking that shit.
It's 36%. I think to kind of interrogate that a little bit, like, what do you think your approval rating is? What do you think your standing is in these states? Rhonda was talking about that Senate meeting, and part of the pitch that the top Biden campaign aides were making was, look, we can still hold the blue wall. Those are the states that from 1992 until 2016, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania went for the Democrats every time. Trump won them in 2016. Biden won all 3 of them in 2020. And that's really where the campaign is going to be this time. And Biden has basically said, I'm the one who can win the blue wall. Part of Biden's argument for why he won't step aside is that he believes privately, he tells people privately, Kamala Harris couldn't win. I don't know if he actually believes that, if that's just justification for not stepping aside. But I think one question I'd be interested in is, do you think Kamala Harris could beat Donald Trump in a head-to-head matchup? And if you don't,
he's leaving and he don't know it yet. I agree.
Rhonda, Biden has this high wire act he has to do from now until November.
Oh, that's a kid. There's a kid outside my window on like a little...
James has just laid out. I really think...
It's like a little Power Wheels. I thought I was seeing a little person. I didn't know what was going on.
George Clooney come out and write the op-ed. Of course, George Clooney can influence some public opinion, perhaps. But at the end of the day, this isn't
30 years ago. George Clooney doesn't have the sway he used to.
I remember that I spoke to a voter who's from one of those swing states you just listed, Wisconsin, for some reporting that I did before.
Cancel Justin, indeed.
Said, I just want to see that President Biden is doing well, because this voter was not enthused about Trump.
It kind of looked like the episode of South Park where Cartman fights the little guy.
And people,
who dressed it up in suspenders?
In his remarks to the camera.
That's what I thought was going on out here.
It's not just going to be limited to just one press conference or one speech. It's going to have to be a string of those things in order for him to turn this around. So even tonight, even though we're talking about how this is highly anticipated, I'm not sure it's going to change much, because it's just one moment.
So it's like a make it or break it moment in a negative, right? It's not right. It's like he can hurt himself by performing poorly tonight. He can raise his confidence level, others' confidence level in him tonight, but he can't dispatch with it at this point. Is that fair to say, Rhonda?
Yeah, I think that is.
He can't just put all the worries and concerns to bed among the caucus and the people you're talking to.
That's right, yeah. And you also have to look, okay, so Biden was one of the longest serving U.S. senators. A lot of the people who are grappling with this decision, whether to not make a statement as a U.S. senator about Biden, they worked with him. These are people who have often been his allies, his spokespersons on the Hill. Of course, they're voters too, and legally they can't do anything about his candidacy, but just having support and not letting this be more of a moment where more and more are detracting from him, I think is important too.
Well, we mentioned this already, but I wanted to share the tape at an event on the Ukraine compact just before we went on the air. President Biden misspoke. He introduced Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as President Putin.
Amazing Zelensky didn't punch him.
Let's watch.
Hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. We're going to beat President Putin. President Zelensky. I'm so focused on beating Putin, we got to worry about it. Anyway, Mr. President.
I'm better.
You are a hell of a lot better.
So I just have to say that that is sort of a classic Biden moment in some ways, right? Because Biden's very good at sort of, I mean, the guy's been on his feet all day. He's been talking to people all week. He's very good. He has that, like, that Irish smile of like, oh, I just said the wrong thing. Let me recover.
To be fair, I could have seen Joe 15 years ago doing that exact thing.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. It wouldn't be so scrutinized.
President Biden has lost the benefit of the doubt. I do think that it was a taboo a little bit, you know, when you're talking about someone aging, and the White House was so adamant that he wasn't slipping. We obviously had been trying to report out rumors.
I mean, yes, we're seeing a dude in cognitive decline,
and now
a very old man. But let's not forget, Joe Biden
Now is Missy Ryan, reporter covering
was a gaffe machine long before he was in cognitive decline.
so much focus on Biden's performance tonight, but you've been watching him all week at NATO. How has this summit gone? Let's turn the attention to that for a moment.
In some ways, it has gone well for Biden, and you would expect that this is an event that Biden can excel at. He really is in his element. He has strong partners in Europe. He has a lot of fans in the NATO alliance.
I think that's what's happening, Flash.
Foreign policy, and also because he's not Donald Trump, and we all know what Trump's presidency meant for the transatlantic relationship, for NATO, because of his threats to withhold American participation from.
Yeah, but Crazy Uncle Joe was a lot of fun, Ducky.
Threats to not comply with the United States Article 5.
The SNL depiction of him.
You know, I think that this, if there was a place where Biden's going to feel good, he's going to know the issues.
Yeah, it's not fun now.
We did see that to a large extent. We heard from other leaders.
Who was it that played him on SNL during the Obama administration? Or what's his name? I'm seeing him in front of my face. Like, he's a big star now.
In private meetings, that he seemed sort of strong and sharp and on the issues.
But, you know, he was aviators and bomber jacket.
That there's a lot
Cool
of
Uncle Joe.
sort of hyper.
And now they play him as a bumbling old fool.
That's just what he's saying, and he did have that very strong address that he gave on Tuesday night to welcome the world leaders to the NATO summit. So
I'm excited for Kamala Harris.
Certainly was much better.
I'm totally on the Harris Bashir bandwagon. I think that's a fantastic ticket. I will enthusiastically vote for it.
The whole event as a package deal will have gone for him after the press conference in a little while.
No, clinically, he said he'll vote for Trump
NATO
over Coppola
in Washington, D.C. Was an opportunity to be a real sort of muscle flex and victory lap, as well as a show of force, because this is in many ways President Biden's sweet spot.
I know, I'm not beating those live allegations. You're right.
Has that come through, or has it all faded a little bit?
Yeah, no, I think it really has. You know, these are his people. These are he's an institutionalist. He's a globalist.
I think Jim Carrey does do a killer Biden impression.
And that's what all.
Oh, Biden is better than Trump. Absolutely. I'll vote for the corpse over Trump.
Particularly in light of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And really, you know, we have to remember that President Biden has a very strong record that he can point to.
Harris taking over does change my mind. It makes me more enthusiastic.
To in support of Ukraine. You know, a lot happened in the last 2.5 years that no.
Call me a lib if you want, but goddamn, at least she's 30 years younger.
Ties with Russia, of everyone coming together and isolating Vladimir Putin on the world stage. So, but
at least she's closer to my age.
That doesn't mean that the entire foreign policy record that he has is the same, but this is the component.
She will be better on Gaza, hands down.
At the same time, you know, that isn't dispelling these questions that a lot of leaders have about Biden's
he's even signaled to people that she'll be better on Gaza.
Physical state, his state of mind, and then of course what that means for these very closely watched elections. We had a leader from a Nordic nation in the Post yesterday, and he was saying that people in his country watch the American presidential elections as closely as they do elections in their own country, just to give you a sense of how significant they see the results of what happens in November for the rest of the world.
No, it's not that. It's that we like. It's a fucking.
Appreciate it. You know,
it's a reality show here in this country.
James, about how NATO has not only not dwindled, it has expanded since Putin's invasion of Ukraine, and that's something that Joe Biden is proud of. But politics, Rhonda, is for many people local. It's also domestic, and Biden keeps talking about NATO in places with audiences like the AFL-CIO. When a lot of strategists
also anonymously.
Focus on
good evening, my
economy,
friend.
Focus on abortion.
I responded to you, but didn't actually give you a tip of the hat.
Many Americans. How relevant is this political story?
Or tip of the bandana
in Washington to people's lives?
I mean, it's really relevant, especially when it comes to the coalition. And,
what's a pill?
Under Article 5, we would have to respond if another member.
I mean, I know the I'd like to fuck part, but what's the P?
What's going on in Ukraine? We did see him outside the AFL-CIO a few days
ago.
It looked like a strong appearance. Again, it does show that the campaign wants to put him out there. Of course, they are managing all of his appearances, but they want to.
Yeah, I might have fucked Bill back in the day.
See it right now on your screen. He gave remarks kind of like, Joe Biden before.
If Bill had brought me in on some kind of kinky shit he was doing,
see that the campaign
like we were having a little orgy, I would have an orgy with Bill Clinton.
But again, and I really want to underline something that both Missy and our other colleague earlier.
My Orthodox Jewish rabbi.
Talking to a Democratic member on the Hill about sort of this.
Is that what that kid said? What was it?
At the same time where Democrats are trying to figure out what to do with the Joe Biden question. And he told me he had met with some of the world leaders who are here. A lot of them are saying, behind closed doors, is America going to elect Trump again? Because we don't know.
Orthodox Rabbi Bill Reformed.
Anxiety about Trump.
Reformed Orthodox Rabbi Bill.
A lot of world leaders are very concerned, especially from NATO member states, because he has made those comments. Just in February, he talked about how he would withhold.
Supported these titles, and we create the games we want to create and do our best because of you. Thank you so much.
I think if God of War Ragnarok came out just a few months earlier, he would have a bigger chance.
Real quick, I want to thank everybody and say that I think I want to nominate this award to my Reformed Orthodox Rabbi Bill Clinton. Thank you, everybody.
I would like to nominate this award to my Reformed Orthodox Rabbi Bill Clinton.
You're my NATO. You're my NATO. Right.
And
does that resonate? Is that like hitting the right notes?
It is one of his. Voters actually do give him pretty high marks for his statesmanship, for how he's handled Ukraine, for rallying the world, and that's Biden's favorite part of the president.
Did not have sexual relations with that Justin.
But it is sort of reminiscent of George H.W. Bush, who had such high marks for his handling of Desert Storm in the first Iraq War.
If you're watching on Twitch, I'm not doing this on purpose. I'm trying to make as much money as I can. I'm going to hit you with a commercial break now so that you won't have it for the next hour, okay? So commercials if you're not subbed on Twitch.
Biden wants everyone to be like, wow, congratulations, this is this great accomplishment. You've made Putin pay.
I'm totally doing it to be greedy and play as many commercials as possible.
Connect it to sort of the framework he sees as democracy versus autocracy. He's defending democracy at home post January 6th, and he's defending democracy overseas in Ukraine. But I don't think most voters make that connection. Maybe a lot of kind of Democratic base voters do. Regular people.
No, if that stops him from getting commercials for like the next 2 hours, that's cool. And if I could totally, I don't think it works that way.
We have JM. We have a Washington Post, ABC News, Ipsos poll that is just out. What do you learn from it?
Yeah, Libby, this poll's really remarkable because it explains a lot of the dynamics that we're seeing play out right now and in the 2 weeks after the
I don't
debate,
like this
the
dude.
concerns about
He looks like he would play like a older brother bully in an 80s movie.
Biden that he needs to make a decision. Biden saying, "I've already made the decision." And
He was picking on Kevin in Home Alone.
wants you to make a different decision. We can see the numbers on the screen there for our viewers. A majority of U.S. adults want Biden to drop out of this race, and that includes a majority of Democrats. That's a striking number there, Libby. And if we look at what the head-to-head looks like when we were talking about how static this race is, that Biden-Trump head-to-head, that is unchanged from our Washington Post polling in April. And that Harris-Trump number there, viewers might look and say that's 2 points ahead. That is better than Biden, but it is within our margin of error. So it is essentially a statistical tie when we look at both of these candidates. They're bringing very similar things to the table, and that's why we found ourselves sort of in a static place here, Libby, where Biden so far has refused to budge, is refusing Democratic calls for him to drop out of this race. We'll see if the numbers change at all. I'll just note that in our
with the resub
average, Trump has gained
what's your
about
deal? I knew he was coming. I heard him.
weeks after the debate.
Libertad, good evening.
There for former President Trump. But this is a race that we expect to be decided by very narrow margins. So a static race like that, what the Biden campaign is trying to figure out at this point is where on the margins, James talked about the blue wall earlier, where on the margins, where in those key states, are they seeing any slippage?
Blue wall my ass.
Kind of shore things up. And if it's not Biden, is Kamala Harris the person to do that?
Thanks so much, JM. James, when you look at those numbers, what does that tell you?
I mean, one of the most interesting numbers in our poll.
Well, I hit the commercial break there because I didn't want anybody to miss the press conference.
In his place, only 29% said Kamala Harris. Most people.
Everybody will be back in 10 seconds.
Like she's the obvious person. Ultimately, this isn't.
Tones, good evening.
By the national popular vote. It's going to be decided in the states. And I mentioned the blue wall earlier. Jam was just talking about that. Elisa Slotkin.
Racism, misogyny. To answer your question, Tones.
Donors on a call this week that Biden cannot win Michigan. Just today, the respected Cook Political Report came out.
But I think that's why you assuage
Senate race.
The misogynists and the racists by putting
Democratic to
Andy Bashir as the vice president.
They all believe sort of the bottom is falling.
Non-threatening white Southern man
voters, African
has a real folksy accent, talks like this.
Maybe don't like Trump.
Very, very popular Democratic governor from a Republican state.
Path to win the presidency. And
the level of misogyny is indeed frightening, and it's internalized misogyny. Some women are like
now, who is retiring, came out and
internalize that shit.
Joe Biden can definitely win Michigan.
There are women out there
Democratic senators
that wouldn't vote for a woman for president, and it's weird.
And we need that Michigan Senate seat. So I think, we talk a lot about Democratic concerns on Joe Biden and whether Joe Biden can win, but I think it's also worth level setting that Democrats are concerned about themselves, right? They're self-interested. It's that's I think important. Because that's what they're thinking about. If the bottom really does fall out, if people are like Biden can't win and don't show up, so they don't vote.
Yeah, there's music in the background, Flash. There's always music in the background.
Three of the people who came out today and said Biden needs to drop out.
We're still waiting for Joe Biden.
This woman, Hillary Schulten, she represents this Grand Rapids district. It was actually Gerald Ford's old congressional district. First term.
I actually don't hear the music anymore since my really nice board stopped working on me.
And she's clearly.
And I've got this real shitty board.
Same thing with.
Oh, don't fuck with him, Warlord.
Another Republican.
There is music, Flash, I assure you.
Hours to a local TV station that Biden should consider resigning, not even finishing his term. And then the other person who in the last couple hours said Biden needs to step aside is Greg Stanton. He's actually in a safe Democratic district, but he is the former.
There is music, Flash.
And he is saying Joe Biden can't win Arizona. And we know Biden can't win Arizona. We need a candidate who can.
They're fun little jaunty numbers.
Are essentially pleading with the president to listen.
I have about 10 that rotate.
The first is that he can't win, that he can't beat Trump. The second is that Kamala Harris can beat Trump. And the Biden campaign is actually paying for internal polling to test Harris versus Trump. And finally, I think what a lot of congressional Democrats are trying to convince the president of, and even some of Biden's own aides, is that if Biden steps aside, it's not.
So back when I first got into broadcasting, my first job on radio when I was 16, if there was dead air on one of our stations for like 4 seconds, 5 seconds. No, there's totally music flash, I swear to you. I can turn it off. Can I? Where is the music? See, music turned off. I can turn it back on. It's very low. But it's there. There's music. It's like floating around at 30 decibels. Or negative 30 decibels. And like, so we had an alarm that would go off if you had dead air. And I don't like dead air, right? But like if you're on a stream, you may not talk, and instead of saying to kind of fill it, it's nicer to have music. It's just sort of filling in the dead air. Venus, good evening. So I like it better. All of my shows have always had music beds under them. No, I did not fuck with the volume level at any point. I can't even see it. It is something that I have programmed that's hidden. It is not one of my VU meters that's popping up for me. That's true. It could have started a new track and it takes a little bit to kick in. I like the tracks. I went through. I spent several hours picking out music to play under the show. Still no Joe Biden.
High stakes moment. Why we've gotten to this point. He sat down with George Stephanopoulos of ABC News.
The Freak Show has
really quashed concerns about his debate and quiet
new wave music. It has 80s new wave.
Let's watch a clip.
Did you ever watch the debate afterwards?
Real electronic chill wave is what's under the Freak Show.
Well, what I want to get at is what were you experiencing as you were going through the debate? Did you know how badly it was
Meat cakes.
Yeah, look.
Mellow Mushroom is excellent.
I prepared. Nobody's fault, mine. Nobody's fault but mine.
Nobody's fault but mine.
What I usually would do, sitting down, as I did come back with foreign leaders or the National Security Council, for explicit detail.
Mellow Mushroom is a regional pizza chain that started in Asheville, North Carolina.
New York Times had me down at 10 points before the debate, 9 now or whatever the hell it is. The fact of the matter is that what I looked at is that he also lied 28 times. The way the debate ran, not my fault, nobody else's fault. No one else's fault.
Maynard.
That's a clip from George Stephanopoulos' interview with Joe Biden, the president, last Friday. J.M. Rieger.
It's like a hippie yuppie pizza place.
Spell, shut down, hit hard.
You'll go in, they'll have Primus and Ween and
thinks Trump would be for democracy. How
Grateful Dead, Fish, shit like that playing, jam bands playing.
Concerns about Project 2025. But
it's all tie-dye and weird decor. At least the one in Asheville is. I don't know what their franchises look like.
Lose-lose in a lot of ways here because now there is such hyper-focus on every single word, every single kind of presentation that the president gives.
It sounds terrible.
At this press conference that's about to happen.
It's good. It's good. I like Mellow Mushroom.
Kind of working towards,
But the one in my town.
Well, having said that,
where I went to college,
the interview did not do.
Is the second one, right? It was same owners and everything as the original one in Asheville.
The other thing that I thought was notable, it came out in our own reporting this week, was that Biden didn't show up to the debate. We talked earlier about how we're still talking about this debate.
I do believe we're getting ready to go to the press conference. Looks like the press has been let in.
The narrative, to Trump, or at least have any kind of
about
him be about
25 minutes ago, they were saying that the press still hadn't been let in.
And that in and of itself is a bad sign for the president. But our reporting earlier this week showed that Biden missed the walkthrough.
All of them may be owned by, the owners. It may not be a franchise.
Almost 30 minutes late getting
But for some reason, I was wanting to think it was a franchise.
And why that's important, Libby, is that the president, when he's at the lectern debating with former President Trump, our viewers might remember in that debate there were a lot of two shots, there were a lot of different there were multiple cameras in the room. The walkthrough would have told Biden which camera to look at, and there were multiple times where it
October was his last press conference.
Off into the distance at nothing. And that maybe helps.
Purgatorus, good evening.
But to your
But also, I was under the impression it was a franchise.
Met that bar, and you mentioned it just a moment ago that there's a lot of downside to this NATO presser that's about to happen. But the upside is really just maybe keeping the status quo for now, live to fight another day. He's got events tomorrow. He's got events and some interviews scheduled next week, and maybe that starts to build the momentum in his direction.
With us now is White House reporter Tyler Pager. Let's go to
Tyler. What's up?
We're looking there at the convention center, the stage where President Biden will.
God damn it, Joe Biden! I really need to do some voiceover work tonight.
In months, Tyler.
Yeah, this is huge stakes for the president, and we in the White House.
I figured we'd already be over with Biden already.
The opportunity to ask him these questions, and press aides and White House officials have routinely said, well, you get a chance to shout at him when he walks off Air Force One, or he responds to questions on the rope line, and he participates in 2x2s.
Maynard is licking my foot.
This is a set piece. We're expecting him to take several questions in these 2x2 press conferences with
6
leaders. He only takes 2 questions from the American press. And so this is not just a big moment for the president in terms of returning to, precedent of taking questions from the press, but obviously we're in an unprecedented moment right now where his candidacy hangs in the balance. It's not just us, the press, that are closely watching what he says. It's lawmakers, it's strategists, it's donors, it's other candidates, and it's foreign leaders around the world. There is a lot of anxiety, not just here in the United States, but around the world about what will happen in November. And world leaders are here in Washington. They know exactly what is happening among Democratic lawmakers, and they're hearing the same sorts of concerns about whether or not Joe Biden can defeat Donald Trump in November. So this press conference has global significance, and I think that's why there's so much interest and attention about what the president is going to say and how he performs tonight.
Tyler, I'm going to play a little devil's advocate here. Is the press being too crazed and tough on Joe Biden at this moment? The briefings have suddenly become very adversarial with Karine Jean-Pierre. There's been so much focus on his age, on his health, on his wellness, on his fitness. I've had regular voters say to me, is the same scrutiny being applied to Donald Trump?
Yeah, look, I think the press is appropriately responding to what we saw in the debate in Atlanta, which was the worst performance I've seen Joe Biden give, and I've covered him since 2019, seen him in hundreds of events around the world.
Buddy, that's just a fraction of Joe Biden's career.
There are questions to ask about his state of being and his ability to do the job of president. Now, I also think we have to.
You were coming your mom's pussy, and he's already a senior senator.
Not something that we just started writing about. We've been writing about voters' concerns about his age since he ran for president in 2020. If you look at polls over the last several months, even the last several years, Democratic voters, a majority of them have consistently said,
I am not high enough for this shit.
To do the job. And so I think this is something that we've tried to cover. We've been routinely shouted down by White House officials, by campaign officials.
I have referred to Chiba.
And not about policy and other things. I think we can do two things at once, and we have aggressively covered the president's administration, his campaign, but this is something voters have been concerned about long before the debate. And I also think, to your point about the White House press briefing, we have been given inconsistent and inaccurate answers from the White House press secretary about the president's health, about which doctors he met with, and those are, subject to public information, given that the White House publishes a log of who's coming in and out of the White House. So I think part of the reason you're seeing more aggression from White House reporters in those briefings is because there's not been transparency and honesty from White House officials about a matter that is not just of concern to the press, but clearly to voters who have for years been saying they're concerned about the president's age.
Tyler Pager, stay with us. You can see Tyler on one side of your screen, and on the other side of your screen right here, you can see the NATO floor. There, it's in the convention.
Tyler gone now.
Washington, D.C., the 75th anniversary of the summit of NATO alliance, which has grown and strengthened since Putin's invasion of Ukraine. James, I just want to turn to you, but we're not going to let go of Tyler, to respond to this question of, is Trump being held to the same standard and scrutiny as...
Well, if he died during his nap, it saves us all a lot of trouble.
There's an expectation of Trump, and during the debate, he said a lot of things that we've become very accustomed to hearing, but Trump was coherent. He made a lot of false statements, but they were
dubious claims.
Joe Biden was not. And I think it because Biden has been so isolated, he has such a small circle of advisors, he isn't doing routine news conferences. He's actually done fewer news conferences and interviews than any president in the history of these things being tracked.
Also, hey, clinically,
and I think it was
if you want a reason to be enthusiastic about Kamala Harris being the president,
that he was repeating
it will absolutely make Hillary Clinton fume.
Going after anyone who dares.
That she lives to see a woman become president.
Scenes that they
and that it was Kamala Harris and not her.
Made it worse for them when the American people, 50 million people watching on TV, saw
just saying
just how much Biden has slipped over the last couple of years.
And there's also the argument too that the bar is kind of lower for.
I would like Hill Dog
as well as
to see a woman president before she croaks.
Moments when he was president, and also on the campaign trail where he has.
Is everybody in agreement on that? It would be nice
place in
for Hill Dog to have to see another woman become the first woman president.
I actually have heard some Democrats on the Hill who are supportive of Biden be kind of angry with the president.
There's 161 locations.
Any scrutiny on.
I didn't know there was that many.
And specifically the lies that he told, as much as we've been talking about Biden's age. But I will point out, just to kind of go back to something Tyler said.
Clinically, I got you now.
Just this campaign, I was thinking about this the other day.
A good selling point.
I followed Biden in 2020, and I was in New Hampshire at a town hall in a school gymnasium there, and I remember a voter.
Tones, the way I put it is that he was trying to say the right thing. He just couldn't get it out.
Not be Trump, and I'm scared. And that was in 2020. And I remember talking to another voter in New Hampshire who told me that Biden just felt too old for him. So this is something that goes way back. Now, a strategist might tell you maybe they should have taken care of some of that, years ago, knowing that it would be an even bigger problem now that he has aged 4 more years. But the questions...
Oregon gal, good evening.
Been pretty consistent. But again, they have kind of hit this fever pitch moment right now.
Tyler, what questions are on your mind if you were there in this press conference? What would you want Joe Biden to answer?
Yeah, our colleague Yasmin Abutaleb is there, and we've been brainstorming all day about the sorts of questions that we would want to ask him. I mean, chief among them is these questions about age, but in particular...
It's all going to be about his age. Is he capable of beating Trump? Is he going to stay in the race?
Aside, Joe Biden has great reverence for elected officials. As I've...
And it's probably going to frustrate him, too.
Officials often carry more weight in their perspective with Joe Biden than even...
And that is going to add to the train wreck we're getting ready to watch.
And one elective office. So them calling for him to step aside, particularly someone from the Senate institution he served in for more than 3 decades, has to hit a little bit harder than some of the other strategists and donor types. So I would want him to respond particularly to those complaints and criticism. But then second, also...
I can't believe there's that many mellow mushrooms.
People...
I would have said there was 20, 25.
Was an aberration, was just quote-unquote a bad night.
I thought they were all located in like the southeast.
Saying President Putin was coming up to speak when it, of course, is Volodymyr Zelensky. So there are these consistent flubs that the president has had over the course of his career, but right now there's an extra harsh spotlight on him and his ability to do the job. And Democratic lawmakers that I've spoken with say he has not proven to them that this is an anomaly. That
he's going to be super aggravated by the questions, by the situation.
Press him on how he's going to prove that. He's often said,
as the reporter said, he's had a long day.
But people are watching him and they're not seeing the type of results that they'd want to see or the performance.
I am a train wreck. You're right.
performance question. And then also, lastly, on what his path to victory is. We're seeing public polls, we're hearing about internal polls, and the map is shrinking. Joe Biden touted his ability to win.
I need a good woman to come in, whip me into shape. I'm a fixer-upper.
Increasingly more difficult, if impossible, for him to win. And so
I had somebody with some business acumen.
There is part of President Joe Biden's team.
Do the business part of my business.
See them waiting for their boss to come, the commander-in-chief, to come in and take the stage to answer.
Make sure I keep on schedule.
Thank you so much, Tyler Pager. J.M. Rieger, you showed us some poll numbers.
I can conquer the world.
Looking
you see Anthony Blinken.
Biden does in a head-to-head with
Jake
Trump.
Sullivan.
Also, though, how Kamala Harris at this moment in time does in
State Department, Lloyd Austin,
Donald Trump.
Karine Jean-Pierre.
Kamala Harris is up to this week, and what role she is playing in the campaign at the moment.
Yeah, Libby. And
I don't want Biden to come in any room.
Of Democrats and Democratic-leaning independents said that they would be, quote-unquote, satisfied if Harris replaced Biden atop the ticket. Harris has been making stops across the country. She was in Nevada and has been talking.
I am completely content
with
Mamala.
Campaign line, standing by Joe Biden, talking about how Joe.
And it's like
voting Biden's when you get knocked down, you get.
If 2024 me told 2020 me that,
North Carolina,
2020 me would probably slap the shit out of
situation
myself.
Here where it doesn't do her any good to come out.
Warlord, are you referencing the story? I think I shared the video. The dude came on a woman's leg inside, I believe it was a Dollar General.
Given where the conversation is right now, there's always that.
How do you come on somebody's leg in a store?
Really, not even necessarily a day-by-day story, but really almost.
Yeah, ejaculate.
Story and how quickly things have changed.
Thank you, J.M.
Ejaculate?
We are waiting for Joe Biden to come out. You can see.
It was not accidentally.
Members.
He did not accidentally come on that
really
woman's
Joe
leg.
Biden's team from the White House. What can be going through their minds right now?
Yeah,
James?
so you see Jake Sullivan there, the National Security Advisor, Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense, chatting with Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State.
Are there people that can just come that fast?
And
this is such a huge week for them.
Shit, I can't even get it up that fast
NATO gathering,
anymore.
the 75th anniversary here in Washington.
You gotta get me in the mood and shit and talk.
Well, I mean, this is their like
talk nasty to me.
I think that a lot of the senior staff, especially,
they're like kissing me on the neck and stuff, and then I get like half a chub.
Loses. And
getting old.
They stay loyal. I think they're going to have a hard time getting jobs in this town next year if Donald Trump wins, and they didn't try to do something. And I think.
How do you know how fast Battle of Possum can come?
Clearly on edge. I mean, you can see the tension. You could cut it with a knife.
Exactly. I couldn't get it up that fast.
It looked like gallows.
In a high pressure situation, there's no way I'm getting a hard on.
Staff.
Now, see, I read that differently. I thought they look so relaxed.
I've had people try to have me film porn. I can't do it because, and participate.
It was the three of us. We were covering Biden's presser after he met with Xi Jinping in California.
How do you know how Battle of Possum stays hard? What?
But remember,
5 months ago.
Tony Blinken at some point, I think they had a camera shot cut to him and he was cringing because Biden.
I'm not gonna lie. I probably do need to look into some
and you could see
dick pills or something.
Blinken look uncomfortable.
I got nothing against the circle jerk.
It will be
and that's the reason why I probably need dick pills. I've been going to circle jerks and orgies
so much of a focus on Capitol Hill this week as Rhonda's
for 20 years now.
Degree heat because lawmakers are very important voices. We have seen in the Republican Party Republicans snap in line and just stand.
For the longest time, I was like, I would never advertise Blue Chew. And then I thought about it. I'm like, why? That's so on brand for me. I'm the fucking stream that talks about needing cock.
It is a very tough moment. And I want to play for you how former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi talked about Biden's candidacy. This is on Morning Joe this week. And let's listen to the new
Blue Chew. I will absolutely, if you want to sponsor this stream.
If he is going to run. We're all encouraging him to make that decision because time is running short.
Adam and Eve Toys or AdamandEve.com.
Nancy Pelosi is clearly
because why not beat your dick?
She is steering the course.
You don't have anything else better to do. Fucking watch some porn, beat your dick.
Joe Biden has already decided what to do. He's chosen to stay in the race. So the very fact that Pelosi is saying he needs...
It's Friday. You ain't got shit to do. Beat your dick.
That, Democrats are leaving the door open that in case he does decide to drop, they are saying that they're not standing in front of that. I think also this part of her sentence where she said...
There's not going to be any jobs later this year. All jobs are going to be gone.
Politician herself.
What that Biden be doing?
Every day of this is going to just get worse and worse if his candidacy is in question.
Don't have a dick, find a friend.
In front of a
You can always use a friend.
So
Everyone can always use a helping hand from a friend.
Whispering out there to not tell him to leave, but just saying the door would be open, that they would support him either way. She also knows the weight of her words because if she says something, the rest of the House Democratic caucus will fall in line. She is still a very strong leader. Not in name. She's no longer...
Is that a euphemism, Venus?
Does have command still on the Hill. So I think she's very aware that she's not going to abandon Joe Biden on Morning Joe or any other program or in the hallways of Congress. And it does show
Go fund yourself.
The older members do want him to make this decision if he makes it. They don't want to be the ones to come out against him.
Yeah, it's like the decision's been made, but are you sure that's the decision? Are you sure that it's
you
not
should
just
have another beer?
Right. It's not just leaving the door open. It's kicking open the door an extra little bit to let some light in, which gives her cover, but also raises the expectation that Joe Biden has to keep thinking this through, James. And has
oh my God!
And so that got a lot of almost outside.
This was scheduled for 6:30.
Because it was.
We finally have all the reporters in the room an hour later.
Which is what she had been saying, and she has also been telling members privately, if you're gonna, basically that was a green light. But she's also said, wait until after the NATO summit. Wait until after the press conference. It's sort of that, politics is supposed to stop at the water's edge. And this,
if he was to step aside,
watching, don't undercut the president while all these foreign.
And I didn't use my thumbnail I made.
I don't think Pelosi would have done that unless she. Really
I've already made a thumbnail for when he steps aside,
which she knows the president watches and pays close attention to those hosts. It does feel like the Biden
those hosts.
High time. A couple days here, to your point from earlier, he's not going to assuage all the concerns tonight, but just
I like the word assuage.
But perhaps this Biden.
You want to see the thumbnail?
Talking to Lester Holt of NBC on Monday. He's talking to a Hispanic network on Tuesday. He's talking to an African American network on Wednesday. And so that maybe this kind of drags out the clock enough that there's not enough time to change horses until all of a sudden there's just a couple weeks left.
Where did it go? Did I save over it?
Decides he's going to drop out.
I sent it to Warlord, so I've still got it somewhere.
We'll have to see how many of those elected Democrats go public. I think one of the things we've learned so far from Biden is he's not going to go quietly. He's going to sort of require that members of his party come out and say, you cannot win. It's not enough to say it privately. He's going to need, if he's going to actually drop out, he's going to need what amounts to an intervention.
An
intervention,
James, is who and what will Joe Biden listen to? And is it a particular set of polls or evidence or information? Is it members
already made the thumbnail?
Some of these Democratic leaders.
I'm this certain that it's coming.
Washington Post, we are awaiting this solo press conference by President Joe Biden. The first
I was expecting it like Monday or Tuesday. I didn't think about NATO.
There is so much pressure on him at this moment after the disastrous debate performance of 2 weeks ago. We will bring the press conference to you live.
I think my thumbnail game is on point.
Post team will have analysis and highlights afterwards. J.M. Rieger, let's go to
doesn't mean I do well on YouTube, but
what we'll be watching for and listening for. Everything from the number of...
If you're watching on Twitch and you're not subbed, I'm gonna hit you with commercial break again, because I don't want you to miss any of the press conference. I am not doing it to be greedy and try to squeeze as much money as I can out of this stream. So 3 minutes of commercials, get it out of the way, then the press conference should be going on when you come back, maybe.
Among other reasons.
Oregon gal, now a follower.
Is expected to
Thank you.
He's expected to take multiple questions and kind of have exchanges, if you will, with reporters, with the press.
I'm totally doing it to try to squeeze as much money as I can out of the stream.
That's kind of a crucial test here because we saw the debate, we saw the ABC interview.
But I am.
Jim, I'm going to cut you off there because we see the president.
Oh, God damn it! Oh, man, I fucked everybody over.
Washington Convention Center here in the NATO summit and President Joe Biden.
We just concluded this year's NATO summit.
Can I bring him back?
Consensus among the members was it was a great success. So especially momentous because it represented the 75th year, the most important military defense alliance in the world's history of the world. We should never forget that NATO grew out of the wreckage of World War II, the most destructive war in history. The idea was to create an alliance of free and democratic nations that would commit themselves to a compact of collective defense. Standing
I
together,
can't.
they knew we'd all be safer. Attack on one would be treated as an attack on all. And it's worked because a would-be aggressor knows if they attack one of us, they'll be attacked by all of us. Sending that message is the best way to deter aggression and prevent wars in the first place. For those who thought NATO's time had passed,
Not high enough for this shit.
when Putin invaded Ukraine, some of the oldest and deepest fears in Europe roared back to life. Because once again, a murderous madman was on the march. But this time, no one cowered in appeasement, especially the United States. We collected intelligence that Russia was planning to invade Ukraine months before the invasion. I directed the intelligence community to be a significant amount of intelligence be declassified so I could start building an international coalition to oppose the invasion. Then in February, some of you remember, I warned the world that the invasion was imminent. I rallied a coalition of 50 nations from Europe to Asia to help Ukraine defend itself. Many foreign policy experts thought as Putin amassed
Thank you. I bought it a few months ago.
100 miles north of Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, but Putin thought it was the mother home of Russia.
What?
The capital would fall in less than a week. But the Ukrainian people, backed by a coalition to help build, stopped them. Today, Kyiv still stands, and NATO stands stronger than it has ever been. During the week of this summit, several heads of states made it a point in their statements to thank the United States and to thank me personally for all that NATO has achieved. NATO is not only stronger, NATO is bigger because we led the charge to bring in Finland and Sweden into the alliance. And it makes a gigantic difference. Excuse me. Meanwhile, my predecessor has made it clear he has no commitment to NATO. He's made it clear that he would feel no obligation to honor Article 5. He's already told Putin, and I quote, "Do whatever the hell you want." In fact, the day after Putin invaded Ukraine, here's what he said. It was genius. It was wonderful. Some of you forgot that, but that's exactly what he said. But I made it clear a strong NATO is essential to American security. And I believe the obligation of Article 5 is sacred. And I would remind all Americans, Article 5 is invoked only once in NATO's long history, and that was to defend America after 9/11. I made it clear that I will not bow down to Putin. I will not walk away from Ukraine. I will keep NATO strong. That's exactly what we did, and exactly what we'll continue to do.
Fuzzy, Prometheus.
The future of American policy is up to the American people.
He did. He had a facelift before 2020.
It's more than that. It's a national security issue. Don't reduce this to the usual testament that people talk about, issues of being a political campaign. It's far too important. It's about the world we live in for decades to come. Every American.
He hasn't taken questions yet. He's just been rambling.
Is the world safer with NATO? Are you safer? Is your family safer?
Don't feel like it.
I believe the American people know. The answer to all those questions is yes. And I believe.
Feel like I was a lot safer 25 years ago, sir.
Stronger because of our alliances. I believe the American consensus from Truman to Reagan to me still holds today. America cannot retreat from the world. We must lead the world. We're an indispensable nation, as Madeleine Albright wrote. Now let me turn to three other key issues. Just this morning, We had a great economic report showing inflation is down. Overall prices fell last month. Core inflation is the lowest it's been in 3 years. Prices are falling for cars, appliances, and airfare.
I wouldn't say falling.
Grocery prices have fallen since the start of the year. We're going to keep working.
Trending down.
Agreed to bring those prices down further. Meanwhile, Trump's calling for a 10% tariff on everything Americans buy, including food from overseas, vegetables, and other necessities. And economists tell us that would cost the average American working family another $2,500 a year. It's a tax of $2,500 a year. Second, our efforts to secure the border, southern border, is working. After Trump killed the bipartisan effort to secure the border, Republicans and Democrats had worked on, because he thought it would benefit me and make him a loser, Republicans walked away. So I took executive action.
Why would that be your second point?
As a consequence, working with Mexico, border encounters have gone down over 50%.
Why wouldn't abortion be your second point?
Is lower today than when.
Do you know what your winning issue is?
Third, for months, the United States has been working to secure a ceasefire in Gaza, to bring the hostages home, to create a path for peace and stability in the Middle East. 6 weeks ago, I laid out a detailed plan in writing. It was endorsed by the UN Security Council, the G7. That framework is now agreed on by both Israel and Hamas. So I sent my team.
Oh, I saw it happen, Venus.
To hammer out the details. These are difficult, complex issues. There's still gaps to close. We're making progress. The trend is positive. And I'm determined to get this deal done and bring an end to this war, which should end now. Let me conclude where I began. We're the United States of America. We are the indispensable nation. Our leadership matters. Our partnerships matter. This moment matters. We must rise to meet it.
You matter.
With that, I'll take your questions. I've been given a list of people to call on here.
Oh, wow.
Information.
Mr. President, your political future has hung over the NATO summit a little bit this week. Speaker Pelosi made a point of suggesting that your decision on whether to stay in the race was still open. George Clooney and a handful of lawmakers have called on you to step aside. Reuters is reporting tonight that UAW leadership is concerned about your ability to win.
UAW just endorsed me, but go ahead.
Thank you. My question for you is, how are you incorporating these developments into your decision to stay? And separately, what concerns do you have about Vice President Harris's ability to beat Donald Trump if she were at the top of the ticket?
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president. So let's start there. Number one. The fact is that the consideration is that I think I'm the most qualified person to run for president. I beat him once, and I will beat him again. Secondly, the idea...
I mean, you're the most qualified person running.
The idea that senators and congressmen running for office worry about the ticket is not unusual. And I might add, there are at least 5 presidents running or incumbent presidents who had lower numbers than I have now, later in the campaign. So there's a long way to go in this campaign. And so I'm just going to keep moving. And because, look, I got more work to do. We've got more work to finish. There's so much, we made so much progress.
Right.
Think about it. Think about where we are economically relative to the rest of the world. Name me a world leader who wouldn't want to trade places with our economy. We've created over 800,000 manufacturing jobs, 1.5 million jobs. I mean, so things are moving. We got more to go. Working class people still need help. Corporate greed is still at large. Their prices, the corporate profits have doubled since the pandemic. They're coming down. And so I'm optimistic about where things are going. Danny Kemp, AFP.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to ask you about your, you mixed up Presidents Zelensky and Putin earlier today.
Trump and
you now
his
have
vice president.
Allies, including the British Prime Minister, the President of France, and the German Chancellor having to step in and make excuses for you on that. Officials here are saying off the record that
he's going to get pissed.
Noticeable. Hasn't this now, frankly, become damaging for America's standing in the world? Thank you.
Did you see any damage to our standing by leading this conference? Have you seen a more successful conference? What do you think? And the Putin piece, I was talking about Putin, and I said, and now, at the very end, I said, here, I mean, Putin. I said, no, I'm sorry, Zelensky. And then I added 5 other names. Look, guys, the idea anybody suggests that we haven't had an incredibly successful conference. How many times did you hear in that conference, I know it sounds too self-serving, but other leaders, heads of state, in thanking me, saying the reason we're together is because of Biden, because Biden did the following. Look, folks, this is well, anyway, I thought it was the most successful conference I've attended in a long time, and find me a world leader who didn't think it was. Next one, Nancy Cordes, CBS.
Thank you, Mr. President. You mentioned other instances in history where presidents have faced a challenge, but what makes this moment in history so unique is that it is not your enemies who are calling on you to reconsider your decision to stay in the race. It's your friends, supporters, people who think you've done a great job over the past 4 years. Have you spent time thinking about what it would mean for your legacy, which you've worked decades to build, if you stay in the race, despite the concerns that voters say they have, and you lose to someone who you yourself have argued is unfit to return to the Oval Office?
Well, look, I'm not in this for my legacy. I'm in this to complete the job I started. As you recall, understandably, many of you and many economists thought my initial initiatives that I put forward, can't do that, it's going to cause inflation, things are going to skyrocket, the debt's going to go up. What are you hearing now from mainstream economists? 16 economic Nobel laureates said I've done a hell of a job. And under my plan so far and what's going to happen in the future if I'm reelected, things are going to get much better. Our economy is growing. I was determined when I got elected to stop the trickle-down economic theory. That if the wealthy did very well, everybody else would do well.
You failed at that.
He's a well-read, decent guy. I don't remember much trickling down on his kitchen table. Middle-class people and working-class people need help. And so what happened is I decided to was able to implement as president what I believed when I was a senator. And that is that the way to build this economy is from the middle out and the bottom up. That way we grow the economy. And the wealthy still do very well. They do fine. And guess what? Find me an economist, a mainstream economist that said we haven't done well. What have we not done that isn't working right now? And so we got more to do, though. We got to finish the job. And by the way, I come from the corporate state of the world.
I am uncomfortable.
More corporations and registered in Delaware than every other state in the nation combined.
It's not a brag.
Corporate, but corporate profits have doubled since the pandemic. Doubled. It's time things get back in order a little bit. It's time, for example, if I'm reelected, we're going to make sure that rents are kept at 5% increase of corporate rents for apartments and the like and homes are limited to 5%.
Huh?
We're going to make a lot of changes that I've been talking about because we're going to continue to grow this economy. And by the way, remember how I got so roundly criticized for being so pro-union, not labor, union. Well, guess what? I've been the most pro-union labor president in history. Not a joke. And guess what? We had the Treasury Department do a study. When unions do better, everybody does better. Everybody does better.
Already knew that.
We talk about how, for example, remember when we talked about getting the computer chip industry back in the United States? Used to be 40% of the industry. We invented the chip. 40% of the industry was in the United States. And former presidents decided that the best way to do it is find the cheapest labor in the world, send the product over there and import what the product was. And so what did I do? I was told not to go over to Europe, to Asia, including Europe, but Asia. And I remember going to South Korea, convincing them to invest $20 billion in the United States to build computer chip factories. And I asked why when they finally decided to do it. And the answer was because you have the safest economy in the world and you have the best workers in the world. So the whole idea here is we've invested, there's over $50 billion in investment in computer chip manufacturing just coming in the bean. None of you thought that would happen. None of you thought that would happen. But it's happening. It's happening. And it's going to grow economies all through. And by the way, red states and blue states. Matter of fact, there's as much in red states as in blue states. I've made no distinction. So my generic point is that the idea...
Generic point?
We can't continue to build and grow the economy, make it fairer. And like I said, from my standpoint, when the middle class does well, that's when the whole economy...
What even was the question?
Poor have a shot, the wealthy do well. But the wealthy got to start paying their taxes.
Well, that's good.
Your Vice President Kamala Harris would be ready to serve on day one. Can you elaborate on that? What is it about her attributes and her accomplishments over the last 4 years that make her ready to serve on day one if necessary?
First of all, the way she's handled the issue of freedom of women's bodies to have control over their bodies.
What's she done?
Her ability to handle almost any issue on the board. This was a hell of a prosecutor. She was a first-rate person, and in the Senate she was really good. I wouldn't have picked her unless I thought she was qualified to be president. From the very beginning, I made no bones about that. She is qualified to be president. That's why I picked her. Felicia Schwartz, Financial Times.
Thank you, Mr. President. Presidency is the most straining job in the world, and it's 24/7. How can you say you'll be up for that next year, in 2 years, in 4 years, given the limits you've acknowledged that you have today?
The limits I've acknowledged I have?
There's been reporting that you've acknowledged that you need to go to bed earlier and your evening around 8.
That's not true.
Past your bedtime, Papa.
What I said was, instead of my every day starting at 7 and going to bed at midnight, it'd be smarter for me to pace myself a little more. And I said, for example, the 8, 7, 6 stuff, instead of starting a fundraiser at 9 o'clock, start at 8.
5309.
People get to go home by 10 o'clock. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about. And if you looked at my schedule since I made that stupid mistake in the campaign, in the debate, I mean, my schedule has been full bore. I've done, where's Trump been? Riding around in his golf cart, filling out his scorecard before he hits the ball?
We watched like a couple different rallies.
He's done virtually nothing. And I have, I don't know how many, don't hold me to it, roughly 20 major events. Some with thousands of people showing up.
No.
And so I just think it's better. I always have
just pointing out, he's not drawing 1,000 people.
Sports or doing politics just to keep going, not stop. I just got to just pace myself a little more. Pace myself. And the next debate, I'm not going to be traveling in the 15 time zones a week before. Anyway, that's what it was about. That's what it was about. And by the way, even with that, I love my staff, but they add things all the time. At the very end, I'm catching hell from my wife.
What?
Anyway.
What? Jill's the best thing about you, you piece of shit.
I'm sorry, Zeke Miller, Associated Press.
Zeke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Two questions for you. First,
on the NATO summit, President Zelensky, in your meeting with him, he
is
pressed
sad
to lift your limitations on the Ukrainian use of American weapons, saying that in his public remarks afterwards, saying that Ukraine cannot win.
Is Jill not the best thing about him?
Limitations are lifted. Are you reconsidering your position on that? And then secondly, following up on Felicia's question there, leaders of your own party have said.
I like Jill.
I
like Jill all right.
That debate. They're worried about the next bad night and the bad night after that.
But you get a police chase after. If you're still good.
That you are up to the task and that there won't be more bad nights at a debate stage or somewhere else.
First thing about Zelensky asking for the ability to strike deep into Russia. We've allowed Zelensky to use American weapons in the near term, in the near or abroad, into Russia.
What kind of weapons?
He should be attacked. For example, should Zelensky, he's not. If he had the capacity to strike Moscow, strike the Kremlin, would that make sense? It wouldn't. The question is, what's the best use of the weaponry he has, the weaponry we're getting to him? I've gotten a more long-range capacity, as well as defensive capacity, and so our military is where I'm following the advice of my commander-in-chief, the chief of staff of the military, as well as the Secretary of Defense and our intelligence people, and we're making a day-to-day basis on what they should and shouldn't go, how far they should go in. That's a logical thing to do. Second question related to
bad nights, sir. How can you reassure the American people that you won't have more bad nights, whether they be on a debate stage or on some matter of foreign policy?
Well, I tell you what, the best way to assure them is the way I assure myself, and that is, am I getting the job done? Am I getting the job done? Can you name me somebody who's got more major piece of legislation passed in 3.5 years? I created 2,000 jobs just last week. So if I slow down, I can't get the job done. That's a sign that I shouldn't be.
You didn't create jobs.
There's no indication of that yet. None.
Your administration created
What we got
jobs.
here?
We said in the past week.
Pulaski Radio.
Thank you, Mr. President. How are you?
I'm well.
The elections in the US have consequences around the world. You have pretty high standing in Europe. I just asked President Macron about you, and he said we are happy to have him as the President of the United States. But there is a concern. Many people in Poland and across Europe are worried that the former president may win the election. And there's a lot of concern that Donald Trump may weaken NATO, stop supporting Ukraine, or push Ukraine to give up territories to Russia.
They're correct.
And yourself was warning just 2 minutes ago about it. So my question is, do you think that Europe will be left on its own if Donald Trump wins the election?
Yeah.
And what's your advice to European leaders to prepare for possible US disengagement?
Well, look.
Trump is meeting with Orban right now.
I think
Viktor Orban of Hungary.
Sounding too self-serving. I'm not having any of my European allies come up to me and say, Joe, don't run. What I hear them say is, you've got to win. You can't let this guy come forward. He'd be a disaster. He'd be a disaster. I mean...
Well, they're nice to you.
In one of his rallies, don't hold me to this, recently, where NATO, I just learned about NATO, or something to that effect. Foreign policy has never been his strong point. And he seems to have an affinity to people who are authoritarian. That worries, as I tell you from Poland, that worries Europe. That worries Poland. And nobody, including the people of Poland, think that if he wins in Ukraine, he's going to stop in Ukraine. That that's going to be the end of it.
Who, Putin or Trump?
What I can say is, I think I'm the best qualified person to do the job. To make sure that Ukraine does not fall, that Ukraine succeeds, that the European alliance stays strong. You may recall, no one was talking about Finland joining NATO. I remember talking to Putin right after we got elected in Geneva, and he was talking about what we should do. We couldn't be in Eastern Europe, etc. And I said, you're looking for the Finlandization of Ukraine.
Finlandization?
I said, you're going to get the NATOization of Finland. And about 4 weeks later, I got a call. No, that's not true. Probably 5 months later, from the president of Finland, could he come and see me? In my office. I invited him to the Oval Office. We sat down and talked. He said he wanted to join NATO. Could I help? And I did. It wasn't automatic. And then I got a call from the Swedes. I beg your pardon?
Logging him?
And so Finland joined NATO. 800-mile border is a significant. And they were already allies.
What just happened?
We're part of NATO. And you heard, I think you heard, maybe, I can't recall what he said in public in our closed meeting, but he wouldn't mind it being repeated. He said, we decided in Finland, the people of Finland decided they had to be part of NATO. It was in our interest because of the joint ability to be together, to dissuade any attack on Finland. And the same thing with Sweden. It took a lot of selling to some folks, particularly in Turkey and other places, to agree to the expansion. But it expanded.
That's what I was thinking.
And we're a hell of a lot stronger because of it. We're more secure because of it. And by the way, I was able to get 50 other nations. 55.
That's Biden's rosebud.
Support Ukraine.
NATO.
We were able to bring about a coalition of Europe and Asia, Japan and South Korea. I just we talked about AUKUS, and we talked about the relationship between Australia, New Zealand, Japan, South Korea, the United States. We're making the world safer and stronger because we have to deal with the new arrangement that exists in the world. The Cold War is over. The post-war era is over. What is going to replace it? And I respectfully suggest I have a pretty good idea what that should be. I've convinced a lot of people to follow it. And we're just going to get stronger.
Yeah, we let you be president, old man. Now leave us alone.
Where's it?
You should have done your one term and bowed out.
Be nice, David.
Mr. President, the NATO declaration that was issued yesterday was very notable because it described China as a decisive enabler of the war in Ukraine for its provision of critical goods.
I'm amazed it's gone on this long.
That's part of a broader partnership that seems to have cemented in place in the past 2 or 3 years. I think one that you were a little bit doubtful of when we asked you about it some time ago. So I'd be interested to know whether you have a strategy now of trying to interrupt the partnership between China and Russia, and whether or not in a second term you would pursue that, if you could describe that strategy to us. And along the way, could you also tell us whether you think, just to follow up on Felicia's question, that if you were in a room with Vladimir Putin again, the way you were 3 years ago,
bye, Felicia,
or with President Xi, that a few years from now you will be able to go negotiate with them, handle them one-on-one?
Well, the first part of the question is, we discussed...
Is that the bar that we set? He wasn't just standing there slack-jawed the whole time?
The future of China's involvement, what they're going to do. What they're doing with Russia in terms of accommodating, facilitating, they're getting access to additional... They're not supplying weapons themselves. They're supplying mechanisms for them to be able to get weapons.
I got a mechanism for you.
China's position is basically, and I've spent more time with Xi Jinping than any world leader has, over 90 hours since being vice president all the way through, for real. And by the way, I handed all my notes. But my point is that she believes that China is a large enough market that they can entice any country, including European countries, to invest there.
They're kind of right.
In return for commitments from Europe to do A, B, C, or D, or not to do certain things. What's happened is
they're fucking huge.
We had a long discussion about what we cannot. You have
That's the NBA.
Has to understand that if they are supplying Russia with information and capacity,
that's Disney,
along with working with North Korea and others to help Russia in armament, that they're not going to benefit economically as a consequence of that by getting the kind of investment they're looking for. And so, for example, we're in a situation where, and we've reestablished direct contact with China after that, remember the balloon, quote unquote, going down?
The balloon.
Something came to an end. Well, we set up a new mechanism. There's a direct line between Xi and me, and our military has direct access to one another, and they contact one another when we have problems. The issue is that we have to make sure that Xi understands there's a price to pay for undercutting.
Yeah, Trump truthed about getting called out in this press conference.
As Europe, and as relates to Russia.
That's going to be the clip.
Dealing with Ukraine. And so for example, if you want to invest in China, as you know this area really well. If you want to invest in China, you have to have a 51% Chinese owner. You have to make sure that you do by their rules. And you don't have the authority, and you have to provide all access to all the data and information you have. There was a while there, as you recall, the last administration and other administrations, where the access to that market was enticing enough to get companies to come in because they had access to over 1 billion people in a market, not 1 billion, but a lot of people in the market. And so they were doing it. But that got curtailed when we started saying we're going to play by the same rules. For example, the idea they don't abide by the international rules related to subsidizing products by the government funding. So guess what? They're not going to be able to export their electric vehicles to the United States without a significant tariff. Others are doing the same thing around the world. But it is a concern. It is a concern that you have both China, North Korea, Russia, Iran, countries that are not necessarily coordinated in the past, looking to figure out how they can have impact.
Well, I don't know what
impact.
What do all those countries have in common?
To talk about the detail of it in public, and I think you'll see that some of our European friends are going to be curtailing their investment in Russia. In China, as long as China continues to have this indirect help to Russia in terms of being able to help their economy as well as help them in, as a consequence of that, their ability to fight in
still possible we get a story about
the other thing that we talked a lot about.
It was dead family members.
Is that, and I raised it, and there was I didn't hear any. I can't swear that everyone agreed because not everyone got to talk about it. But we need a new industrial policy in the West. For example, we talked about how both the EU as well as NATO has to be able to begin to build their own munition capacity, has to be able to generate their own capacity to provide for weapons and the ability to, it came as a surprise to some of us how we had fallen behind in the West in terms of the ability to construct new material, new weaponry, new everything from from vehicles to weapon systems. And so one of the things that came out of this was we're going to be meeting again with a number of my colleagues, my European colleagues, is what do we do to increase the capacity of the West, particularly in Europe and Japan, to be able to generate kind of ability to produce their own weapon systems. Not just for themselves, but to be able to generate that. It's the same, it's what Russia's trying to figure out. That they went to China and they didn't get the weapons, but then they went to North Korea. But we're going to be in a position where the West is going to become the industrial base for it to be able to, the ability to have all the defensive weapons that we need. That was a discussion as well.
More weapons.
I'm not sure you answered on whether you would be ready to go deal with Putin and Xi 2 or 3 years from now.
I'm ready to deal with them now and 3 years from now. Look, like I said, I'm dealing with.
Sounds like he's ready for a threesome.
And direct contact with him. I have no good reason to talk to Putin right now. There's not much that he is prepared to do in terms of accommodating any change in his behavior. And but there isn't any world leader I'm not prepared to deal with. But I understand the generic point is Putin ready to talk? I'm not ready to talk to Putin unless Putin's ready to change his behavior. And the idea, look, Putin's got a problem.
Benny, my friend, good evening.
In this
for being a freaking
war
follower
that he is supposedly have won. And by the way, I think, don't hold me to the exact number, but I think that Russia had 17.3% of Ukraine that they've conquered. Now it's 17.4. I mean, in terms of percentage of territory. They've not been very successsual. They've
It's 33 1/3%.
life.
You take your 33
They've also
and a
lost
third
over
chance,
350,000
minus my 25% chance, and you got an 8
troops,
and a third chance of
military,
winning.
killed or wounded. They have over 1 million people, particularly young people with technical capability, leaving Russia because they see no future there. They've got a problem. But what they do have control of is they are very good at controlling and running the public outcry that relates to how they use mechanisms to communicate with people. They lie like hell to the constituencies. They lie like hell about what's going on. And so the idea that we're going to be able to fundamentally change Russia in the near term is not likely. But one thing for certain, if we allow Russia to succeed in Ukraine, they're not stopping.
What was the question again?
I know you know this because you've written about it. Read Putin's speech after they moved in, what it was all about in Kyiv. It wasn't about just, anyway, read what his objective is. And anyway, but so I think that I'm prepared to talk to any leader who wants to talk, including if Putin called me and wanted to talk. Last time I talked to Putin was trying to get him to work on an arms control agreement.
Never brain too much.
Weapons in
That's
space.
dangerous.
That didn't go very far.
Anonymously,
my
thank you
point
for the
is,
sub.
I'm prepared to talk to anybody, but I don't see any inclination.
Bavero.
There is an inclination on the part of the Chinese.
Fuck you.
To contact with me, because they're not sure where this all goes. And look what's happened in Asia. We have strengthened the Asian Pacific.
Pussy and bio.
Everyone else has. We just put together with. Today I brought on. I asked our NATO allies that we bring on the group from the South Pacific, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Australia. I already mentioned Australia. And I met twice now, I think, with the 14 leaders of the Pacific Island nations. And we've slowed down what's going on there. We've slowed down China's reach. But there's a lot of work to do. This is a moving target, and I don't take it lightly. Assam from NPR.
Well, we're at the NATO conference. This is a NATO press conference.
Thank you, Mr. President. Asma Khalid with NPR. I have two questions. Earlier, you spoke about the ceasefire plan between Israel
NATO week. It's kind of like Shark Week.
We're now looking at 10 months of war, and I'm curious if there's anything that you feel personally you wish you would have done differently over the course of the war.
This is the end of the summit.
I wanted to ask you about your presidential campaign. I remember covering your campaign in 2020, and there was a moment where you referred to yourself as a, quote, bridge candidacy, a transition to a younger generation of leaders. I want to understand what changed.
Two things. Let's go back to when you talked about would I have changed anything that's happening with Israel and the Palestinians and the Palestinian movement. The answer is, as you recall, from the very beginning, I went
Hey, don't look at me. I tried to organize this for Katie Porter.
In Egypt.
And now look at her. She's not even in Congress anymore.
Jordan. I met with most of the Arab leaders to try to get a consensus going as to what had to be done to deal with getting more aid and food.
He never said that, actually.
Into the Gaza Strip. And we pushed it really hard. And Israel occasionally was less than cooperative, number one. The Israeli
I knew he'd be the nominee.
I've been
knew he would run
Israel
again.
since Golda Meir. Some of the reporters around here cover me all the time have heard me say this. The first time I met with Golda Meir, I sat
Oh my God!
across from her on her desk, and her assistant was Rabin sitting next to me. That's how far back I go. I know Israel well, and I support Israel. But this war cabinet is one of the most conservative war cabinets in the history of.
It was like a Politico article that kicked off all of that.
And there's no ultimate answer other than a two-state solution here. And so what was able to be done in terms of the plan I put together was it would be a process for a two-state solution. And we get the Arab nations to, particularly from Egypt all the way to Saudi Arabia, to be in a position where they would cooperate in the transition so that
He's been pretty bad, Flash.
in Gaza.
Were you here for him calling
without
Vice
Israeli
President
forces
Harris
staying in
Trump?
Gaza. The question has been from the beginning.
He said Vice President Trump.
In Gaza. And the day after in Gaza has to be, the end of the day after has to be no occupation by Israel in the Gaza Strip, as well as the ability for us to access, get in and out as rapidly as you can, all that's needed there. I've been disappointed that some of the things that I put forward have not succeeded as well, like the port we attached from Cyprus. I was hopeful that would be more successful. But that's why when I went to Israel immediately after the massacres that occurred at the hands of Hamas, the one thing I said to the Israelis, and I met with the war cabinet and with Bibi, don't make the same mistake America made after bin Laden. There's no need to occupy anywhere. Go after the people who did the job. You may recall, I still get criticized for it, but I was totally opposed to the occupation and trying to unite Afghanistan. Once we got bin Laden, we should have moved on, because it was not no one's ever going to unite that country. I've been over every inch of that, not every inch, the entirety from the poppy fields all the way to the north. I said, don't make the same mistake we made. Don't think that's what you should be doing, is doubling down. We'll help you find the bad guys, Sinwar and company. And all this criticism about I wouldn't provide when the weapons they needed. I'm not providing them 2,000-pound bombs. They cannot be used in Gaza or any populated area without causing great human tragedy and damage. But remember what happened when you had the attack on Israel.
You're saying they really want these fucking bombs
and ballistic missiles.
Almost like they're doing a genocide.
The Arab nations as well as Europe, and nothing happened. Nothing got hurt. It sent an incredible lesson to what was going on from the Middle East. So there's a lot of things, in retrospect, I wish I had been able to convince the Israelis to do. But the bottom line is we have a chance now. It's time to end this war. Doesn't mean walk away from going after Sinwar and Hamas. And if you notice, you know better than most, there is a growing dissatisfaction
Shout out to everyone who watches the replay.
From the Palestinians about Hamas.
Might be listening to this on the podcast later.
And so there's a lot of moving parts. I just have to keep moving to make sure that we get as much done as we can toward a ceasefire, and get those. And by the way, look at the numbers in Israel. I mean, my numbers are better in Israel than they are here. But then again, they're better than a lot of other people here too. But anyway.
What? Did you say his numbers are better than Israel's?
In 2020, you referred to yourself as being a bridge candidate for a younger, fresher generation of Democratic leaders, and I wanted to know what changed.
What changed was the gravity of the situation I inherited in terms of the economy, our foreign policy, and domestic division. And I think, I won't put words in anybody's mouth. Most presidential historians give me credit for having accomplished more than most any president since Johnson and maybe before that to get major pieces of legislation passed. And what I realized was my long time in the Senate had equipped me to have the wisdom to know how to deal with the Congress to get things done.
Fair enough, Dustin, especially this.
No one thought would happen. And I want to finish it, to get that finished. If tomorrow, if we had a circumstance where there was a lineup and
usual troll patrol fodder is not Valium though.
Move things along. Anyway, it's going to change.
Last
question. Haley Bull, Scripps.
Haley Bull.
No, Josh Weingrove. I'm sorry.
Sounds made up.
What's
Wait
the
a
next one?
Josh?
2 more questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. Many of your colleagues, Democrats on the Hill, are watching tonight as they assess what they want to say about your candidacy. I'm wondering how you're thinking of this right now.
Oh, his numbers are better in Israel. Okay.
They're watching how things go tonight, tomorrow in Michigan, next
I was
week.
like, I'd hope you poll better than Israel.
Are you thinking that way about how the next week or 2 goes?
That makes way more sense. Thank you.
Are you thinking that way about how the next 2 weeks go? Will that affect your decision, or are you fully determined on running in November as the party's nominee?
I'm determined on running, but I think it's important that I allay fears by let them see me out there. Let me see them out. You know, for the longest time it was, Biden's not prepared to sit with us unscripted. Biden's not prepared to, anyway. And so what I'm doing is, and I've been doing, I think we've done over 20 major events from Wisconsin to North Carolina to demonstrate that I'm going out in the areas where we think we can win, where we can persuade people to move our way, or people are already there. And then look, the other thing is, we have the most extensive campaign organization of anybody's had in a long, long time. We have well over 1,000 volunteers.
No, you were not at the Obama campaign.
Making phone calls, making tens of thousands of phone calls. We have headquarters. I forget exactly how many. I don't want to cite a number and then find out I'm off. But we have scores of headquarters in all the toss-up states. We're organized. We're moving, and that's awful hard to replace in the near term. And so
we're in double digits, aren't we, Warlord?
I was in the Senate a long time.
It's something like 12 Congress people have come out and said
I was chairman
Biden
of the Foreign
should step
Relations
aside.
Committee for a long time, and I was chairman of
one senator
and chairman of the Judiciary Committee. I'm going to be going down to the Johnson Library. Anyway, I'm going to be going around making the case of the things that I think we have to finish and how we can't afford to lose what we've done or backslide on civil rights, civil liberties, women's rights. There's that little button we have. Control guns, not girls. I mean, the idea we're sitting around, this is where Kamala's so good as well. We're sitting around. More children are killed by a bullet than any other cause of death. The United States of America. What the hell are we doing? What are we doing? We got a candidate saying, promise the NRA, don't worry, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do anything. We got a Supreme Court that is what you might call the most conservative court in American history. This is ridiculous.
Don, my friend, good evening.
So much we can do still. And I'm determined to get it done. It's about freedom. By the way, I'll end this. Well, I'm not going to do that. Haley has
what?
Up too. But I remember I made a speech on democracy in Philadelphia at Independence Hall.
He's malfunctioned like 5 times.
I'm not being critical, just observing.
Yeah, this is the Dark Brandon speech.
The press, what the hell is he talking about that for? Democracy. You did. Democracy's not an issue. Democracy's not an issue.
What?
Except the polling data showed 60% of the people knew I was right, thought I was right. I'm not asking you a question. You don't have to answer, obviously. But do you think our democracy is under siege?
Yeah.
Based on this court? Do you think democracy is under siege based on Project 2025?
Yeah.
Do you think he means what he says when he says he's going to do away with the civil service? Eliminate the Department of Education? Make sure, we've never been here before. And that's the other reason why you say, hand off to another generation. I've got to finish this job. I've got to finish this job because there's so much at stake.
We've had some discussions over the past few days with your press secretary about the question of health exams. And you said you take a cognitive test every day in this job. Are you open to taking another physical or test before the election? Governor Whitmer of Michigan, for instance, said it wouldn't hurt to take a test.
Well, look, 2 things. 1, I've taken 3 significant and intense neurological exams by a neurologist.
Whoa.
In each case, as recently as February. And they say I'm in good shape, okay? Although I do have a little problem with my left foot because it's not as sensitive because I broke my foot and didn't wear the boot. But I'm good. I'm tested every single day.
Oh, but you can play golf.
Logical capacity to decisions I make every day. You talk to my staff, all of you talk to my staff. Sometimes my staff talks a lot. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think you have them telling you that all the major ideas we've undertaken haven't been in part initiated by me. I remember when the staff and I said, I'm going to go to South Korea, we're going to get the chip. What are you doing? I'm going to get Japan and Korea back together again after essentially having hostilities toward one another since the end of World War II. I'm going to move and see that we can expand. The only thing age does is help you with it, creates a little bit of wisdom if you pay attention.
Oh my God.
And so the point I'm making is, I think it's important that if the neurologist tells me he thinks I need another exam, and by the way, I've laid every bit of the record out. Hadn't hidden a thing. You ought to ask Trump for his, okay? I laid it all out.
Well, I know what the consensus of the chat is.
Docs, if they think there's a problem, I promise you, or even if they don't think it's a problem, they think I should have a neurological exam again, I'll do it. But no one's suggesting that to me now. And I'll ask you another question. No matter what I did, no one's going to be satisfied. Did you have 7 docs? Did you have 2? Who'd you have? Did you do this? How many times did you? So I am not opposed if my doctors tell me I should have another neurological exam, I'll do it. But that's where I am. Haley Bull, Scripps.
Thank you, Mr. President. You said you're making decisions
Haley Bull.
on a daily basis when it comes to support for Ukraine.
Doesn't sound
Does that
real.
mean you have not closed the door on further considering lifting restrictions for U.S.-made weapons inside Russia. And if I may, your convention is coming up where your delegates are pledged to make you the official nominee. If they have second thoughts, are they free to vote their conscience?
Obviously, they're free to do whatever they want, but I get overwhelming support. Overwhelming support. I won, I forget how many votes I won in the primary. Overwhelming. And so tomorrow, if all of a sudden I show up at the convention, everybody says, we want somebody else, that's the democratic process. It's not going to happen.
Even if that means they vote for someone else?
Sure. Look. I'll end this with this.
Yeah, Trump is harmless.
I served in the Senate a long time.
It's all the sycophants around
I
him.
understand the impetus of candidates running for local office and whether they think the topic can help them or not. In my state of Delaware, which was a very, at least...
Yeah, fair enough, Venus, but he's just like a big dumb goof.
In terms of where you now talk red and blue. I don't recall most of the Democratic presidents winning my state when I was a candidate. The truth of the matter is I understand the self-interest of a candidate. If they think that, running with Biden at the top is going to hurt them, then they're going to run away. I get it. But so far, go and look
the Stephen Millers,
in their states.
That A-Cuff dude that
and
makes the
by the way,
TikToks. Or Ascot or whatever his name
I think you'd all
is.
acknowledge, and you're all
Steve Bannon. Those are the scary fuckers.
How accurate does anybody think the polls are these days?
All the assholes at the Heritage Foundation,
likely voters,
the Federalist
versus
Society.
Trump, where I win all the time. When the unlikely voters vote, he wins sometimes. The bottom line is all the polling data right now, which I think is premature because the campaign really hasn't even started. I mean, it hadn't started in earnest yet.
Has it not?
It doesn't start till after September, after Labor Day.
We had a debate.
A lot can happen. But I think I'm the best I believe I'm the best qualified to govern.
You're not.
And I think I'm the best qualified to win. But there are other
You were
people
never.
too. But it's awful start from scratch. And, we talk about...
He has campaigned. He's had campaign stops. He's had fundraisers.
We got about $220 million in the bank. We're doing well. So, with that, you have any want to follow up on any of that you just asked me?
Come on, Haley.
You earlier explained confidence in your vice president.
Yes.
If your team came back and showed you data that she would fare better against former President Donald Trump, would you reconsider your decision to stay in the race?
No, unless they came back and said, there's no way you can win.
Some people are saying that.
No one's saying that.
No, people are saying that.
Okay. Thanks.
This ends tonight's press conference.
Apparently, people very close to you are saying that.
This concludes.
Respectfully, earlier you misspoke in your opening answer. You referred to Vice President Harris as
Trump.
President Trump. Right now, Donald Trump is using that to mock your age and your memory. How do you combat that criticism from tonight?
Well, come on, respond.
To him.
This concludes tonight's press conference. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, everyone.
President Joe Biden walking off.
Hold on. I want to hear what they've got to say. I want to hear what they've got to say about this, but the first thing we're gonna do is you're going to listen to the clip that they were referring to. Trump has shared it out on Truth Social. This is his post.
I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president.
I'm blocking Truth Social.
I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president.
That's pretty fucking major. Now, for those, no one in my chat is of this belief that there's not been significant mental decline. I would like to show you Joe Biden from 8 years ago. This is from 2016. This is night and fucking day.
That's right. Oh, that's right. Oh, I forgot I got to file him. Oh, I got to file his papers. Now, maybe you can't take all the time. Yeah. I'm sorry, Mr. President. I was talking to Candy. I didn't have time to file the papers.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, we can do it.
That's right. Let me bring you back to some domestic questions that I wanted to talk about. Housing. A lot of folks have said to me, until the housing market stabilizes, until those prices begin to go back up, there can be no economic recovery. Does the administration have anything left?
Yes, we do. That's part of this jobs bill, is providing for us the ability to be able to go out there and help people refinance.
This is 2016.
6% mortgages, above 6%. They could refinance at 4% if the fees were waived, and we're able from a federal level to have some impact on that. And so that would save the average homeowner $2,000 a year. That may be the difference between being able to stay in.
This was just 8 years ago.
In addition to that, we continue to work with agencies we can't directly control, federal agencies, that in fact to loosen the restrictions on the ability to refinance. And we're continuing to try to work with banks so they can
completely different person
actually doing what we think they should have been doing much more of, and that is sitting down and renegotiating with people who are about to go under.
You can absolutely tell the facelift.
That the house not be foreclosed on, even if it means temporarily they take less in terms of monthly payment, or in fact maybe even throw down the principal.
Quick question on the super committee. One of the reasons that the trigger was put in there.
And this is what Joe Biden was good at.
If they can't come up with
taking one-on-one questions,
savings,
doing retail politics, and he can't do it anymore. That was his strong suit. He can't do it anymore.
Will also take part of it. How comfortable are you with the cuts that would go on? We all want the super committee to work, but how comfortable are you?
The super committee.
The alternative will be huge cuts.
Remember, this is when he was still vice president.
Says that you just can't take.
They'll be very difficult, but I was the one that negotiated that. It was designed for two reasons. One, it was along the lines of what you'll remember, no one else will know, the Graham-Rudman-Hollings, a way to automatically reduce spending across the board that is the most equitable.
Something has happened to him.
The important thing is that we
and it could just be old age.
Down payment in drawing down the long-term debt. And so it's designed to serve two purposes. Make it clear to these guys in the committee, if they don't reach an agreement, this is going to go into effect. It failing to go into effect, if it is a bad.
So I watched a clip of him from 2016 and 2020, and I was stunned by how different he was from 2016 to 2020. When we were watching the debate the other night, C-SPAN was showing the debate from 2020, and oh my God, it was the same thing. I was like, holy shit, he was way better in 2020. I want to go to, CBS isn't on anymore. Let's go to Fox Live. This isn't Fox News. This is Fox Live. Now let's do NBC News. Let's see what NBC News is saying.
Defiant, saying, look, I'm going to stay in this race. I understand why people have certain concerns. He says that they are valid. He says that he understands. He even conceded that if his neurologist suggested that he should have another extensive examination like the one he did earlier this year, that he...
So I kind of want to go right wing.
That stood out as well, given all the questions about his age and his health right now.
Yeah, and we're going to have to wait and see how voters saw his stamina, how they saw his energy, how they saw his cadence, how they heard this speech. He did have one moment there towards the end of the news conference that you mentioned.
Oh my God, there was another police chase.
Basically asking what would happen at the convention if the pledged delegates to President Biden decided they didn't want him to be the nominee. Listen to that.
Tomorrow, if all of a sudden I show up at the convention, everybody says we want somebody else, that's the democratic process. It's not going to happen.
So President Biden, as you mentioned, they're defiant, right? Essentially saying that this is not happening, even though the reporting coming from NBC, New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, various other news organizations, that people in his inner circle and also other Democrats maybe want him to step down, maybe want another candidate. I want to play another moment for you. This is something he said during the news conference. You cover President Biden day in, day out. You've been covering him every step of the way since the debate. He said this about major events that he's been hosting since the debate. I want to play for our viewers now. Let's Okay, we're gonna give him a second to cue that up. It's the 20 major events. It's ready to go. Let's go.
And where's Trump been? Riding around in his golf cart, filling out his scorecard before he hits the ball? I mean, look, he's done virtually nothing.
Oh, that was a shot.
And I have, I don't know how many, don't hold me to it, roughly 20 major events. Someone with thousands of people showing up. And so I just think it's better. I always have an inclination, whether I was playing sports or doing politics, just to keep going, not stop. I just got to just pace myself a little more.
Monica, is that the case? Is the president hosting 20 events? Is that fair? Is it around there? Was he being truthful?
Look, I think he's trying to combine a couple.
We watched Bernie, who was what, 10 years older than Biden? 8 years older?
Traveling a little.
We watched him from Sunday.
Of radio interviews.
Still got it.
He was back and traveling again, and so he's taking all of those individual engagements and, let's say, maybe a stop at a restaurant. Like
I was trying to find a Fox News feed.
One of those things, in addition to then giving a speech.
That's kind of what I was wanting.
In addition to then these engagements that he has had at NATO over the last couple of days. So if you add up all those things,
but not 20, right? But not 20 major campaign events. I understand now. Since you mentioned the radio interviews, I know there's some new reporting on that. What exactly has happened, and what's been uncovered with some of those radio interviews?
Yeah, and I think what's notable about those is that they have really generated more controversy in the way they were handled than the actual substance of what was said in those interviews. He did them right before the 4th of July, and in those interviews he conceded that he had screwed up, that he had made a mistake, that he had a terrible debate night. But what we learned after the fact is that, in fact, some staffers from the Biden campaign and from the White House had apparently suggested interview questions to those radio hosts, and some of them were taken and essentially asked pretty verbatim. And so
apparently they fired one of the radio hosts over it.
Also related to those radio interviews, Tom, we understand that the campaign asked them to edit out a portion of something that the president had said during the interview because they didn't happen live to air. They were taped to then later be released.
Oh, a lot of the people on Rumble are talking about the big boy press conference.
They said that wasn't up to their journalistic and ethical standards.
Monica Alba, terrific reporting from the get-go. We appreciate having you on tonight. I want to get right over to our chief political analyst, Chuck Todd, who joins us now. Chuck, your first thoughts after watching that. I have a series of other questions for you, but I want to get your initial opinion from watching
every
it.
Small
well, look, if there wasn't the debate, right, if that had never happened, this would have been fine and somewhat perfunctory, right? It would have been sort of, frankly, what we've come to expect from these public performances by the president. Some slip-ups here. He clearly, on the topics and on the substance, he knows this stuff. I think the reaction you're going to get, though, is really a Rorschach test. If you are looking for a reason to break with him, you can find some instances to say, look, while he knows the topics, can he really go toe-to-toe with Trump? He still is allergic to the word abortion. He finds a million different ways, even, to vaguely talk about it, right? So,
hey, Chuck, explain that point, Chuck. I think that's important. Explain what you mean there.
About the specific on abortion?
Yeah, explain that.
Well, I mean, look at it. He talked about, when he was talking about the strengths of Kamala Harris, he started saying freedom for women's bodies. And then
he said it weirder than that.
Girls, right? He'll make allusions to it, but it's clear, and it drives a lot of Democrats, particularly in these swing states, crazy that he can't say the words abortion ban or abortion or anything like that.
Because of his Catholicism?
My point is,
I know it's Catholicism.
If you want to feel better about Biden, or at least tell yourself, hey, he's good enough. I think this press conference you could say, okay, yes, he can lead the ticket. But I don't think he allayed any concerns about his ability for all 4 years. And I think that, I think there were some questions that could have been asked more directly about that, about all 4 years. I do think it's notable what he said at the very end, when he said that if his team came to him and said there was no path to victory.
People have been saying that.
He would take that into consideration. And then he quickly said, but there's no evidence of that, right? It's not true.
That was a report today.
If you're looking for, is he leaving the door open to be persuaded to get out? perhaps that answer at the end, you could hang your hat on that. So, but I'll tell you this, before this press conference, it did feel as if, boy, is he going to survive the weekend? Look, he's digging in. And
he is digging in.
Democrats,
but that doesn't mean that he's going to survive. I was trying to find Fox News, but unfortunately I cannot. There is not a Fox News stream available for me. But Timcast is talking about this, so let's see what they've got to say for a second.
Becoming a vassal state of the European.
Well, on that as well, the reason Brexit was voted for was immigration. Okay.
Oh, God, yeah.
Last year, to reiterate to our American viewers, the UK, in a country the size of New York State, let in 1.2 million people legally, with an extra 2 million visitors.
Not even talking about it anymore.
Days, and
that's Sargon of Akkad, and I don't know who the other dude is.
Under the Conservative Party. And so, essentially, Brexit was punished by...
They both got UK accents.
The administrators of Brexit were the Conservative Party. The voters voted for lower immigration. The Remainers wanted to stay in the EU. The Brexiteers and the Conservative Party wanted global Britain. They saw the European Union as a constraint to having not enough Indian, Chinese, Pakistani immigration.
Do you understand? I know you understand exactly what they're doing. Yeah. They are going
That's nice equipment wasted on this asshole.
The individual culture of Great Britain, so that you have too many warring factions.
They're not even talking about it. I like to get some other angles on reactions, possibly. Let's go to Washington Post. Let's see what Washington Post is saying.
Reflect for me on how President Biden answered that. And, you had talked about his need to give a crisp, clear mission statement and a purpose that we really didn't hear during the debate or even the George Stephanopoulos interview. Is this that moment here?
No.
I think he started to take steps towards that moment, Libby. I mean, I think
baby steps, like the toddler he is.
Mentioned, which is Democrats are clamoring for him to get to this moment of make the pitch. Make the elevator pitch.
Everybody infantilized him.
That we can go out and campaign on. I want to read
his big boy press conference.
Question that sort of ties into that.
Sterling McPherson. What's up, my friend? Thank you for being a freaking follower.
His legacy, and he said that was not, kind of his primary concern in terms of
what was the results of the poll
about, this equation of whether
why can I not see the poll?
Or not here. I just want to make also a quick point on the timeline here.
Who won the press conference?
If you're kind of the Biden campaign, if you're Democrats at this point, we're waiting on a Trump vice presidential.
Trump won the press conference.
Announcement at some point in the coming days here. Definitely within the next.
Can you not see the poll from the
Republican National Convention next week, as Rhonda mentioned?
Mod View
out next week. So if you're the Biden campaign, you seem to have bought yourself some breathing room here in terms of kind of the focus of the story.
I don't see the poll anywhere.
Getting off of this kind of 2-week-long stretch post-debate on Biden's acuity and strength and
I need poll.
Office. And now it shifts a little back towards former President Trump. This is also important because there is sort of a tentative deadline, as our reporting has shown in early August.
Why you guys talking about my butt?
Vote from the delegates to nominate Biden, and then we have the Democratic National Convention in August as well. So this is quickly approaching here. So you would, and what our reporting shows is that if Biden stayed in after that, it would be much more difficult to replace him potentially on state ballots after the Democratic National Convention. So what we're talking about here is about a 4 to 5 week stretch that is sort of the crucial timing for this question of if, when, how Biden gets out of the race here.
James, did Joe Biden make a clear, concise, crisp case here about why he should be elected? There's been this critique and criticism of looking back rather than looking forward. And as he tried to tackle this and answer the question,
is it police chase time?
This thing of legacy, as JM mentioned, we've heard a lot of. I'm going to say
I don't think we're going to get the consensus on how bad it was until tomorrow. This is not the police chase that I had in mind. This is a much longer one. This one happened in Washington. Most of the police chases we have been watching taking place in LA. Since it is a bit of a long one, I turned on. I think it's 2 times speed. Got some sort of clicking noise. Let me minimize that. Here we go. This is a police chase that's happened in Washington State earlier today. I don't think it's the motorcycle we're following. I don't know if we have a reporter. I believe it may be the vehicle in the fast lane right there, the gray, like a Prius. I believe that's who we are following currently. I do not see any law enforcement. We have not seen law enforcement currently during our chase. Well, we're not sure. Let me see if I can get you some background while we're watching this. Driver reaches for dropped chicken sandwich and flips car, Washington police say. Okay, this is apparently a has 33 arrest warrant and apparently went on a dangerous crime spree. Details provided by law enforcement described a dramatic scene around 8 p.m. This happened on July 3rd. I thought it was today. I'm sorry. This apparently happened on July 3rd. Okay, I see the timestamp now. July 3rd. Beginning with the defendant, Bo Whitfield, allegedly operating a stolen pickup truck which led to a police chase. Despite running over a spike strip that punctured a tire, the suspect continued driving until King County Sheriff's Office, assisted by their aerial support unit, joined the pursuit along with ground patrols. So he apparently forcefully removed the 72-year-old man from his minivan. That's what we're seeing now, because like this is the aerial unit joined in. When the man took out his keys, the defendant threatened him with a hammer. The victim threw the keys and tripped the defendant as he retrieved them, but the assailant eventually succeeded in stealing the minivan and resuming his flight from police. So he'd already fled in a truck, then carjacked somebody, and we're following him now. We're picking this police chase up now. 33 warrants since 2009. He's accused of attacking a senior citizen, committing auto theft, instilling terror in another driver, and creating a danger to the public. Apparently some sort of minivan that we're following. It's the gray vehicle in the next to the left lane. Next to last left lane. Now weaving in and out of traffic all the way over to the right. Holiday. Well, Holiday, actually, I don't believe I watched the video on stream. I think it was one that I watched all on my lonesome because I don't think it happened recently. But I watched a man say he needed to shit. It's something from the helicopter. This is their first look at law enforcement, who've apparently been laying back. But he's driving more and more erratically now. He has 33 warrants. He's in a stolen vehicle. This happened in Washington State. Looked like he was getting off the exit, comes back around in front of the semi. Curious, sir. Good evening. Oregon gal, he may be heading your way. To the new people that just came tonight, we find out what that news be doing. 33 amateur. Gotta get those numbers up. I had a cop tell me one time that if you want to get out of a ticket, apologize profusely, and like a speeding ticket, apologize profusely and say, I don't care if you give me a ticket, just follow me down to the restroom, let me relieve myself because I gotta poop real bad. And he said 9 times out of 10 the cop will let you go. So we're coming on to a state road now. The cops are still back up onto the interstate, it looks like. We are watching in double speed. This is a police chase happened in Washington State. Thought it happened today, but the body camera or the helicopter video was apparently released today because he had a court appearance. Happened on July 3rd. About 8 o'clock p.m. I've still got another one. This wasn't even the original chase I was going to show. This has just been posted. While we were waiting for Biden, they posted this. And I was like, well, damn. Hold on, I need a beverage here. Oh, God. Oh, fuck, the cop hit somebody. What a fantastic maneuver. Oh, we gotta watch that back. The cop rear-ended him. Amazing. Still, it's going to be awfully hard to be the best police chase. Rush wants to run it back one more time. Here we go. It's when they come up on this, I believe it's this exit right here. I believe it's that car that's getting ready to get rear-ended. Boom! Still, it's gonna have to do a lot in order to be like even in the top 3 best police chases I've watched this week. I'm sorry if you got ads on Twitch. I probably already missed them. We're coming up on the top of the hour. I don't know if I missed them or not. But in case I didn't get them, I'm going to hit you with ads again. Make sure we get them out of the way so you see the... It's not because I'm being greedy. Not because I'm trying to squeeze as much money out of the stream as I can. It's because I want you to be able to see the end of the chase. So I'm going to hit you with 3 more minutes of ads. It is totally because I'm being greedy and trying to squeeze as much money as I can out of this stream. Clinically, this went down in Washington State. We are in Washington State. Let me get you a town. Black Diamond, Washington. It happened in Black Diamond, Washington. Media Winch, good evening. Usually we're watching police chases from around Media Winch's area. They're usually all in California. For all we know, this is fucking Rambo up in here, and the cops are just giving him a hard time. Got a popo on his ass. Whoa! We almost hit a vehicle. I'm slowing her back down. This is real time now. Because we're on city streets now. Building kind of looks like a dick. I still do have a police chase from California, though. We might watch it, too. Who knows? They laid back for the first 20 minutes of this chase. Well, I don't know how long it went before the aerial unit got there. But the entire thing that we have on video is about 30 minutes. Oh, here we go. Yep, they're trying to pit him. They got him boxed in now. He ain't going nowhere. Fucking that cop car is smoking. Seems that the airbag has been deployed. Yeah, usually you would say him in this kind of situation because this is usually by the profile a male. However, we had a female driver in a police chase just last week, so you never know. You never know. Hope everybody's back from commercial break. You got to see the end of this. The cops pulled a pit maneuver. It's that cop's car. I don't like. It's not the assailant that fled. It's one of the cops that was chasing him. So he has come out with his hands up. He's walking backwards. Can't really get a good look at him. Looks like he's in overalls. He knew the drill. he knew the drill. Yeah, I don't know why they kept flipping to the heat view. They've done it again. Oh, this cop pulled up on him and pierced his radiator or some shit. Running into the suspect. Because they're dumb fucks. Those minivans are tough. I don't think we have anything else going on here. Oh, did you miss it? Grill, you want to go back? We can watch it again. My favorite part was when he got the cop to ram the car. I really enjoyed that. I mean, I don't know what he was trying to do here. I listen to the people. I'm a people pleaser. He may have blown a tire right there. I just noticed that. Here we go. He tried to pull a maneuver on the cop, but it did not work out well. A Justin pleaser. Oh yeah. You can see something is spilled out from that cop's car all over the road. Oh, we know, Kinsai. Also, good evening, my friend. Glad to have you here. It's more than 40% in most municipalities. I'm pretty sure it's the majority in most municipalities. It's over 40%. So state prosecutors are advocating for a $200,000 bail for a defendant accused of a series of violent crimes following a pursuit by Black Diamond Police. Details provided by law enforcement described a dramatic scene around 8 p.m. on July 3rd, beginning with the defendant, Bo Whitefield, allegedly operating a stolen pickup truck which led to a police chase. Despite running over a spike strip that punctured a tire, the suspect continued driving. Pickup collided with a Toyota sedan. Following the collision, Whitefield is reported to have approached the victim and violently struck her car window with an object she believed to be a baseball bat. The victim found herself cowering in fear as the glass of her vehicle shattered around her. The suspect then fled the scene on foot. The continuation of the crime spree saw the suspect forcefully remove a 72-year-old man from his minivan near the University of Washington Medical Facility. When the man took out his keys and the defendant threatened him with a hammer, the victim threw the keys and tripped the defendant as he retrieved them. But the assailant eventually succeeded in stealing the minivan and resuming his flight from police. That is the minivan that you just saw right there. Deputies pursued the stolen minivan, driven recklessly and at excessive speeds, until executing a pit maneuver to end the chase. The defendant's criminal history includes 33 warrants since 2009. In recent events, he's accused of attacking a senior citizen. We already did that tonight, too, on the 3rd. earlier in this video, accused of attacking a senior citizen, committing auto theft, instilling terror in another driver, and creating a danger to the public. Given his record and the severity of recent allegations, authorities expressed concerns that he's a flight risk and likely to commit further violent crimes. Whitefield is charged with first-degree robbery and attempting to elude a pursuing police vehicle. So there's one chase for you. I got another. I'm your police chase headquarters over here. I watch way too many body cam footage channels. Way too much news. God, I need to do like hours of voiceover tonight, but it's not getting done. I'm probably going to play video games. Oh, thank you. Oh, I love documentaries, Perg. That's what I made 2 or 3 when I was in college. Documentaries are one of my favorite things in the world. Like I've gotten to the point where there's a lot of shitty documentaries out there. Oh, I do watch First Amendment auditors. Absolutely. Those people crack me up. So this one happened like yesterday in San Fernando Valley. When I was in college, they brought in some documentary filmmaker that like did shit for PBS or something. I think that's what it was, because I think I went to her movie and it was on PBS. It was like it was talking about Night of the Living Dead, and it was about how, you know, it was really a metaphor for the civil rights movement and all like the cultural shit phenomenon surrounding it and stuff. So yeah, she really good movie if I'm remembering this correctly. And she came to speak to my class, and they had everybody that's interested in documentary movies come and listen to her little speech or whatever. And they invited me because I'd made 2 documentaries. I think I ended up making a 3rd afterwards. So I'm sitting there, and I'd actually had I need to pack a new one. I might have to like grind some weed up. But let me finish telling my story here. I had been, this was in like 2011, 2012, this is 2012. This is not long after the financial crash. It's still really fresh in the minds and everything. And I had hooked up with a girl. She became my girlfriend. But on our first date, we went to a Pussifer concert. And then after the concert, we pissed on a Wells Fargo together. And it was, it was a weird, we both kind of into water sports, I guess. As if that's a surprise to you guys, given my affinity for wanting to piss in Dan Crenshaw's eye pussy. But we didn't know it at the time, right? It's just like a weird thing that somehow we ended up doing. But I had come up with this idea that we would tell the story of how the bank screwed us over and shit while going around and pissing on different financial institutions. And I called it See Me Pee. "You're in for a wild ride" was like the tagline of it. And this woman, who is apparently like a very distinguished documentary filmmaker, asked if anybody had any ideas for a movie currently, and that was the one that was bubbling in my head at the time. Now, I ended up making a movie about sexual assault a couple of years later, and that she probably would have really been into that one. Like what causes sexual assault from a male perspective and shit. I interviewed some psychologists and shit like that. Ultimately, I wish I'd done it differently, but I was trying to fulfill the requirements of the class. What the fuck ever. But anyway, that's the See Me Pee is the one that I pitched at her, and apparently this was just like the most embarrassing thing that the head of my broadcasting department had ever been put through. She thought that I killed her puppy. Because I pitched this distinguished documentary filmmaker about my pissing on banks movie I wanted to do. Cause I'm really into documentaries. Like one of the very first, it wasn't a movie, it was like a video project I did for a class. It was all the people had the brooms, and they were standing the brooms up and saying it was because the planets aligned and shit. And I got my astronomy teacher to give a whole explanation about how it's just the bristles on the broom. It's nothing planets aligned. And I used REM "Stand in the Place Where You Live." It was cute, but it wasn't very good. I have it. It's not very good. It is not on my YouTube. Other documentaries that I've done: Inside the Outhouse, the story of hillbilly days in Pikeville, Kentucky. That one's on YouTube. I support me pissing on banks too. Anyway, here's another police chase. This one happened in San Fernando Valley.
Adjacent to Lake Balboa, as we continue zigzagging.
This is not the one that we watched
50 to 60 miles per hour
in San Fernando Valley 2 days ago.
It's behind this stolen vehicle as he continues to do circles around this block. They're no more than a football field behind him as they try and keep up here. He is flying through these intersections, blowing through red lights, blowing through stop signs, and making.
They'll have to have it private because so many people will want to piss on it.
Been deployed. Unclear whether it was a successful spike or whether it had any impact on the vehicle whatsoever. We're continuing with the lights out, blacked out vehicle here. It's a silver SUV, older model SUV, possibly.
It does not have their headlights on.
Hyundai, excuse me.
Trying to be inconspicuous.
Westbound Hart Street, westbound Hart.
With a helicopter on their ass. Let me get some pot. I have to get some more, bro.
Oh!
Ooh!
Jamming on the brakes there. Close call with cross traffic right there on Van Owen Street. A wild right turn there. And a successful spike. That looked like a dead-on hit. That unit was ready with that spike strip, and he's going off-road here.
Well, at least they're using their turn signal.
Left turn. Still blacked out here. Lots of traffic on Van Owen there. And he's just cutting these corners way too fast. They're right on his tail, and we may see him surrender any moment here. Nobody out of the vehicle yet, but there is a driver and a passenger in that passenger.
It is Jover.
That we know of.
I do believe that's a Hyundai.
Information of the passenger. Unclear whether there's anybody else in the back seat here, but they are still inside the vehicle, and it looks like some light smoke emanating from under the hood of the vehicle.
That's why they had to come to a stop. All the telemetry
jammed on the brakes
going nuts inside of the car.
Owen Street, and it looks like that might have caused.
The fucking cop car is smoking too.
We're overheating here. This is ridiculous. So LAPD now trying to execute a felony stop. Officers out of their vehicle. LAPD's airship right overhead here. Lots of light flooding this intersection. This is going to be Yarmouth and Welby.
Go towards the light, Joe Biden. Go towards the light.
Two male suspects inside the front of this vehicle. Again, we do not know if there's anybody else inside. They are clearly shuffling around in there. We had a little bit of a glimpse just a moment ago from the LAPD airship.
Yes, they called it an airship the other day, too. It looked like just a helicopter. When I hear airship, I think like Bowser's airship in Mario 3.
And Yarmouth Avenue pursuit coming to an apparent end here after
You shut your mouth.
to be a successful spike strip attempt. Look at somebody now approaching the driver's side of the vehicle. Must be the suspect here as they just walked right up to the vehicle. Is communicating with the driver. And it doesn't even look like she's being ordered away from the vehicle. Very interesting. We'll keep the officers in the frame here. She is clearly familiar with the driver here. Again, this is a supposedly stolen vehicle.
What in the fuck?
Windows rolled down. Suspect now talking to an apparent relative or acquaintance. You can see them now stepping out of the vehicle. Passenger
Spang him! Spang him!
Ready to surrender as well. And
on camera.
Something tells me this isn't the first time this I mean,
wow.
The nonchalant nature of the mom or whoever that was here stepping out of the frame now. These kids are in big trouble. They appear to be surrendering. Again, we only know of the driver and the passenger. They appear to be surrendering. They are now stepping away from the vehicle, complying with officers.
It was the LAPD. You don't want to get shot.
Try anything cute. They really just stopped the vehicle at the intersection there and now are complying with officers as they are, well, at least the driver now, almost proned out here on the pavement. Again, at the intersection of Welby Way and Yarmouth Avenue, a high-speed, reckless pursuit through residential streets here in Van Nuys, through Lake Balboa.
You can tell the cops are giving them conflicting
LAPD Devonshire unit
orders.
With, two suspects about to be in custody after a wild chase. It was a really scary chase, the way they were speeding through some of these residential streets. Fortunately, it has come to a peaceful resolution. The passenger giving up as well. You see lots of smoke here. Everybody's brakes overheating after a very scary crossing at Van Owen Street. Lots of traffic. The suspect vehicle had a jam.
Lucky he ain't get shot.
Braking at some of these intersections, but fortunately, the reckless driving has come to an end. Driver and passenger now proned out of the vehicle. Officers will approach the vehicle and confirm that the rest
I don't even know where this ranks in all the police chases I've watched in the last week.
Momentarily.
They've all been wild. The woman with the panties that got the folders out of her car. I've never seen anything like that.
That arrest team now communicating.
Stopped and parked and put this the sunblocker up. Well, they got a shotgun though, clinically, just in case.
More than a dozen officers at the end of this pursuit. Two suspects in custody, and fortunately, nobody hurt in this really wild pursuit. an official code 4 from the officers on the ground there. 2 suspects in custody.
Well, that was the end of that one. Driver reaches for dropped chicken sandwich and flips car. Washington cops say. Well, he did a number on it. Driver rolled his vehicle after trying to pick up a dropped chicken sandwich. He had minor injuries. Amazing, Vancouver, Washington police said. 46-year-old man was enjoying his chicken sandwich, succulent chicken sandwich, as he drove. In Washington, but the drive turned dangerous when he dropped it. The driver reached to pick up his sandwich and ended up crashing into a pole and flipping his vehicle. Yes, that is 100% what actually happened, police said. Police responded to the incident at about 10:25 p.m. that night and found the man with minor injuries and with no signs of impairment. He wasn't cited for distracted driving, but his insurance information was collected. It was a different crash. It was a 16-year-old that was texting and driving. Different crash. This is the chicken sandwich. It does not say where he got the chicken sandwich. Who believes that Popeyes is a sandwich that you will wreck your car over? Who believes that Zaxby's has a chicken sandwich that you will wreck your car over? Who believes that Chick-fil-A has a chicken sandwich that you will wreck your car over? 0 out of 10. All of them. Never had any of them? Never had Chick-fil-A or Zaxby's, Popeyes? Bojangles. I don't even know what my favorite chicken sandwich is. I like a Chick-fil-A sandwich. Let's hey. Let's talk about, you guys like the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Maybe you like Red Hot Chili Peppers on your chicken sandwich. Who here's a fan of the Red Hot Chili Peppers? We were speaking about distracted driving. Perhaps, is this John Frusciante, or is this the dude? John Frusciante's with them now. Is this the dude that they kicked out that was his replacement? And maybe he had a chicken sandwich?
The family of an Alhambra man struck and killed in a crash is now suing former Red Hot Chili Peppers guitarist Josh Klinghoffer for wrongful death.
Klinghoffer.
The victim's family's attorney, Klinghoffer was on his cell phone at the time of that crash.
This entire incident caught on surveillance video. KTLA 5's Samantha Cortese joining us here in the studio with the latest developments. Samantha?
Glenn and Lou, this happened in March, but people may have likely not heard about it until today. The family is suing, saying they have proof the driver was on his phone, and the suspect got away with it because of his fame. We must warn you, the video is hard to watch.
Seeing that video, it was not something I would want anyone to see.
This is the moment 47-year-old Israel Sanchez was hit by a car while walking in a crosswalk in Alhambra near West Main Street. Here you see the driver stop, get out, and call 911. Sanchez died hours later at the hospital.
The driver is rock guitarist Josh Klinghoffer, whom fans may know from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Inducted into the Rock and Roll
Lee seems like a good guy.
2012, Klinghoffer is currently touring with Pearl Jam. His attorney said in a statement, this was purely a tragic accident. But the Sanchez family says this was preventable, a case of distracted driving. Sanchez's only child, Ashley, is suing for wrongful death and negligence.
I break down almost every day, and it's very hard not to break down in front of my kids.
She said her dad treated her and her 2 kids like royalty. He was a watercolor artist and a talented chef whose joy in life was cooking for family.
I grew up eating Italian. He worked actually on Main Street where he passed away. So close to home.
From that same intersection, lawyers say they have obtained video evidence showing Klinghoffer was driving distracted. You'll hear more from the lawyer coming up at 3. The family says they have not received as much as an apology from Klinghoffer, let alone any offer to help with funeral services. Alhambra police tell KTLA the guitarist is cooperating with an active investigation. We reach out to the band and the DA's office for comment. Again, more at 3. In the studio, Samantha Cortese, back to you.
Well, when it comes to that financial settlement you need to be giving that family, I suggest you give it away, give it away, give it away now. Oh my God! I'm horrible. God, stop me. Stop me. As long as we're talking about musicians accused of horrible things. You Hag indeed. I cracked myself. I knew it was bad. I knew it was bad. As long as we're talking about musicians accused of horrible things. This one I'm on the side of. Red Hot Chili Peppers, not too big of a fan of. Young Thug over here, I'm on his side. He's getting railroaded by the popo.
RICO trial in limbo over allegations of judicial misconduct.
Throw it out.
It's whether Judge Ural Glanville should continue to oversee the case. 11 Alive's Grace King joining us now live from the Fulton County Court.
Mistrial.
Could we get an answer here?
Really any time now that both sides have had a chance to weigh in on that recusal motion.
Love you, Dougie.
Judge Rachel Krause, who's in charge of making that decision, says she wants to rule quickly because the case already has a jury attached to it.
This is a high-profile issue. Everybody is waiting on it, and it also involves how so many assets down at the Fulton County Courthouse are going to be used and planned.
Georgia's longest trial ever, currently on hold over allegations of judicial and prosecutorial.
It's just getting started.
And it's basically being alleged that the state and judge are working together against the guaranteed constitutional rights of the defendants.
Attorney Joshua Schiffer, who isn't affiliated with the case, says the out-of-court conversation between Judge Ural Glanville, prosecutors, and witness Lil Woody raises questions for the defense.
Ex parte conversations are generally completely forbidden. The basis for forbidding ex parte conversations is to preserve the integrity of the system.
A supplemental motion from Young Thug's attorney, Brian Steele, argues the ex parte meeting is improper, unethical, and grounds for recusing Judge Ural Glanville and disqualifying the 2 state prosecutors present at that meeting.
This is as aggressive as criminal litigation and defense gets. The allegations being brought forward are basically burning the bridge down.
Steele wrote Young Thug's constitutional rights were, quote, trampled, ignored, and violated by this meeting, and that his client should be released from custody and cleared
Release
of all
him.
charges.
Free Young Thug. Free Young Thug.
Lawyers in Georgia, for a lawyer of his caliber to make the kinds of allegations included in this motion, that's pretty unheard of here in Georgia.
Free Young Thug.
Deadline for the state to respond to that recusal motion passed just a couple minutes ago. As soon as we get our hands on a copy of it, we'll be sure to let you know what's in it. Live in Fulton County, Grace King, 11 Alive News.
All right.
Thank you, Grace. Free Young Thug. Free Young Thug. I'm so on his side. I thought about flipping back into politics and doing AOC on the fly. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it tonight. We're going to do a few more crime stories and we're going to get out of here. We do this one first. I feel like you guys are going to really like this one. So I should save that for more towards the end. Burglars ransack multi-million-dollar home, and we have footage of it. Like, I feel like you're going to be into that one. I feel like we should do the more horrific things I have here. Let's do fucking... This happened in San Diego. People go crazy in San Diego. What's the deal with it? Like, it's such a nice area. I've been to San Diego. A hotel worker stabbed a guest and then ended up driving into the San Diego Bay.
One of the women was actually either asleep or close to asleep in the bed. The other one walked with him back toward the bathroom. And at one point, he asked her to hold his phone. She looked at his phone, and on his phone, he had written something to the effect of, "Don't scream. I have a knife. If you scream, I'll stab you." She looked up. He was holding a knife.
At that point, the woman did scream and fought Tran off. Police say she had one stab wound in her upper chest that she's since been treated and released from the hospital for. And both women were in their 20s visiting from out of state. The other woman who was sleeping didn't get hurt, but this is when police say Tran ran away and then sped off in his white Honda.
About a half an hour later, we started getting information from the Harbor Police Department that there was a sergeant down there who saw that vehicle, or what ended up being that vehicle, driving the wrong way down near Harbor and Market.
Witnesses say they saw the car doing donuts and burnouts before speeding off the Navy Pier going 80 miles an hour. Police say Tran didn't try to get out of the car and likely drowned, and when they recovered the car and his body around 5:30 this morning, they noticed Tran had stab wounds around his collarbone. They say they don't know what made him do any of this. Someone who'd only been working at the hotel for about 6 months and has no criminal history that they know of as of now.
What in the world?
Also got off work about 2 hours before this altercation, and police aren't sure what he did with those 2 hours in between, but they're working to get and comb through surveillance footage. Lieutenant Phillips has been working in this department for about 35 years and says, "You don't hear about this happening over here."
The first thing that's going through my mind is I'm extremely grateful that the women weren't hurt or worse. I think, she fought and it paid off.
Thanks for watching.
Shut up, Lester.
Breaking news.
How? It was like a local NBC. Why is Lester on there? I don't want Lester. I get too much Lester. He's like my pit bull now. He haunts me. Let's do 3 people, including a child, had to hide in their house during a home invasion. Fuck Lester. I have no problem with Lester. It's just because he's on all the videos. I don't mind Lester at all. I find Lester is the most milquetoast broadcast anchor. He has a nice voice. And that's why, he's unoffensive to white people. That's why Lester Holt is successful where he's at. There's nothing wrong with him. He does a fine job. No problem with Lester. But fuck him.
Now at 12:30, police are searching for the suspects involved in a terrifying hot prowl burglary in the San Fernando Valley. 3 people, including a child, hid from the thieves as they ransacked the home.
Now, this happened overnight near Edgerton Avenue and Moore Park.
Edgerton.
KTLA 5's Sarah Welch is there now live with the very latest. Sarah?
Hi, Lou and Glenn. Good afternoon.
Look, it's the bottom of the hour. I fucked up the commercial breaks. I don't know if it's going to play a commercial, but just in case, because I don't want you guys to miss the story that's coming up after this. where we're going to watch a multi-million-dollar home get ransacked. So I'm going to hit you with a commercial break on Twitch. It's not because I am being greedy and trying to squeeze as much money as I can out of the stream. That's not it at all. I'm just doing it to make sure that you guys see the house get ransacked here in just a few minutes. So 3 minutes of ads, and we'll see you. It's not like I intended to do that. Like, I just, like, it just started happening, so I went with it. Like, I'm the last person to play that many ads at people. Oh, God. Still, that 6 minutes of ads in an hour. I worked in radio. There's way more than 6 minutes of ads in an hour if you listen to talk radio, I assure you. Oh, God. I hate playing ads.
Information from LAPD. A detective has been out here canvassing.
Oh, I didn't know. Tadpole, I'm sorry. I didn't know you hit Beanie time. My apologies. Are you still here? Do you still want to see Beanie? Why don't you speak up and make it happen?
For security video, and he did tell us that so far police have recovered 2 pieces of video that show a light-colored SUV with 3 individuals pulling into this cul-de-sac around the time of this hot prowl burglary. They're looking to see what, if any, connection that has to this case. And right now, the detective told us the focus is building a description.
We have a group of about 3 individuals. We do not know their descent yet. They appear to be very well covered with zip-up hoodies, and face masks.
And police say those 3 entered the home in the 4900 block of Edgerton in Encino by smashing a back rear door. It was just after midnight. A grandmother, a child, and an employee of the house, they were sleeping. They were able to get a call into 911 and then hide in a bedroom. Now, detectives say this all happened very fast. In fact, one investigator told us that thieves in general are well aware of response times, and these thieves were in and out before LAPD arrived.
In this case, once they broke in, they started ransacking the master bedroom. However, once they were alerted to the presence of someone inside, it appears that they fled from the scene.
Now, it's not clear at this point what, if anything, was taken. Detectives told us the homeowners are still doing an inventory of their belongings. One woman told us she lives just across the street, and she told us off camera that she came home to 3 individuals in her driveway a couple of weeks ago, and when she pulled up, she says they sped off. Police are looking into whether there might be any connection to that and what happened here overnight. And Back Here Live detectives told us that one fortunate thing in this case is that this is a cul-de-sac and a tight community, and hopefully
I've never had in and out
more video clips that will piece this whole thing together and lead to the identification.
That's the one with the jungle fries and shit, right?
This hot prowl burglary. Lou and Glenn, will send it back to you.
All right, Sarah Welch, thank you.
Okay, everybody is back from commercial break now. I promised you footage of a multi-million-dollar home getting ransacked. That's what you get.
A multi-million-dollar heist in the Hollywood Hills. Thieves break into a home, stealing dozens of expensive watches. The sophisticated burglars disabled the alarm system and disconnected cameras during the daytime heist.
Residents say it is not the first break-in in the area, and they are terrified their neighborhood is being targeted. John Finolio is live in the Hollywood Hills with more on the thieves behind this bold daytime burglary, a story you will see only on 5. John?
Cher and Micah, the homeowner tells us several homes have been hit in his Doheny Estates neighborhood in the last months. And as you mentioned, he believes he was targeted, and he hopes his story will serve as a warning to other residents.
My neighbor called me and said, "Hey, are you at your house?" I go, "No." I said, "I'm afraid you've been hit."
Luis got that call just before 12:30 Tuesday and raced to his Hollywood Hills home to discover he'd been burglarized.
Whoever broke into this house kind of understood the security system.
How could they understand it?
Because they disabled they went straight to the media room and disabled all the internet. That allowed them to have a free pass because all of the cameras completely go offline.
Were they hackers or was it just a weak ass setup?
Just like your phone doesn't work here. Nothing works, right? Automatically, the gate opens.
You can see the shattered glass from where the thieves smashed their way into the house, then ransacked the closet. Luis says neighbors saw 3 men in ski masks leaving his home located in Doheny Estates in a white Jeep Grand Cherokee.
There were 3 of them. One went downstairs. One went to disable the security system, while the other one went in the closet to take what they came here for.
What they came for were Luis's collection of expensive wristwatches.
My entire collection of Patek Philippe is gone, all of them, every single one of them. And I had some very special pieces.
You believed that these crooks knew what they were going after?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They knew what there was here, and that's the thing that I don't understand, because I'm very private. So how would they know what was here?
He says he's now making major security upgrades, and he's not worried about being victimized again.
I don't know what they can rob because they took everything.
Why do you want to get the word out about these stolen watches?
Well, because to dispose of stolen watches, you got to find buyers. The watch community is a very, very, very tight-knit community, and if they can just watch out for a flood of watches, I mean, you're talking almost 50 watches, very high-end watches.
Why do you have so many watches?
Market, and you're going to know that some of those watches are mine.
All right, Luis says his watches have specific serial numbers and paperwork. He said, I
don't give a shit about this dude's watches
that don't have this verification of authenticity. He also says he hopes residents will check their security system so that they too don't become victims. We're live in the Hollywood Hills. I'm John Finolio.
You're telling me that you got a shit ton of watches and people broke in, they were able to disable the security, and they stole a goddamn shit ton of... They knew you, son. They cased your house somehow. Or they knew you. They were your friends. Hello, good evening. All right, I didn't want to do politics, but we do need to, this is sort of a significant development. We now know when we're gonna find out Trump's VP pick. It's gonna happen Wednesday at the convention. Don Jr. to introduce Trump's vice president pick at Republican convention. Don Jr.'s involvement raises speculation that Senator J.D. Vance will be the vice presidential pick. Donald Trump's running mate will be introduced at the Republican National Convention next Wednesday by his eldest son, according to people familiar with the matter, raising speculation that Senator J.D. Vance will be named the vice presidential pick after being endorsed by Don Jr. The fact that Don Jr. will speak immediately before the running mate delivers remarks, earlier reported by Axios, is seen as a notable inside the Trump campaign because of Don Jr.'s close ties to Vance. Still, a person directly familiar with the matter cautioned that the speaking schedule was decided 3 to 4 weeks ago, and they were uncertain how instructive Don Jr.'s involvement was. Trump has said that he wants his running mate to be revealed at the convention next week in Milwaukee, but due to convention rules that requires the ticket to be nominated by the first day, the former president has been forced to make his decision before Wednesday. For months, Trump has presided over a characteristically theatrical selection process in which he made dramatic pronouncements at rallies in an effort to drive media speculation before narrowing the list to a final 3. North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, Senator Marco Rubio, and Senator J.D. Vance. I still think it's going to be Marjorie Taylor Greene. Let's watch a Good Samaritan stop a carjacking. So this also happened out in LA. This quite possibly could have been a police chase that we didn't get to see thanks to this Good Samaritan. God damn it.
A multi-million-dollar heist in the Hollywood Hills. Thieves break into a home, stealing dozens of expensive watches. The sophisticated burglars disabled the alarm system and disconnected cameras during the daytime heist.
Residents.
Hold on. is like, I've got like some stupid AI thing. I wonder if that's like one of the things that's causing YouTube to be wonky. Here we go.
Man's car. Why are you trying to stay on this man's car?
Now at 11, an attempted carjacking is stopped thanks to Good Samaritans.
It's like a...
to tackle the suspect. Good evening, I'm Micah Ullman.
And I'm...
See, there it is. I don't even know what it is.
They just did what they thought was right when they saw someone who needed help.
The entire terrifying ordeal was caught on camera. Mary Beth McDade live in Hollywood with the story tonight. MB.
We just heard from her.
Yes, and Mike and Sherry spoke to some of those Good Samaritans who came across this driver who was screaming for help, and so they ran to his rescue and prevented him from being carjacked.
Get out the car! Get out this man's car! Why are you trying to stay on this man's car?
Several Good Samaritans tried to stop what appeared to be a carjacking in progress at Vermont in Beverly in East Hollywood. You can see in the video the terrified driver of the Tesla screaming and trying to push the man out of his car as the man clings to the driver's steering wheel. These two men say they came across the alleged crime occurring about 2 weeks ago as they were heading to a nearby skate park around 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Pulled up right next to them and we see that some guy needed some help because it looked like someone was stealing a car.
While Caesar Clara stayed in their car because he was driving, Adam Hakeem ran to the victim's rescue.
So the black pedestrian has his arm around the wheel, and he's not letting go. While the other person in the car, he's Asian, and he doesn't know what to do. He wasn't saying much except for the shock, please get him, just get him out.
Hakeem tried to grab the suspect away from the car and get him to release the wheel, but that was unsuccessful.
So proceeded on to at least take his attention off of the steering wheel, so I proceeded to kick his leg. Hopefully he'll let go of it.
Kick him in the leg.
Within minutes, police arrived and took control of the situation and the suspect, who some think is homeless and maybe mentally ill or possibly
well, that's sad.
So they came pretty quick.
Well, that's a lot of assumptions.
And they just detained him.
Officers reportedly arrested the suspected carjacker for grand theft auto. We asked Adam how it feels to have done such a good deed.
Feels good. I mean, everybody has the spur of the moment, whether they can or not, but it feels good.
It was great to meet them both. We also reached out to the LAPD to try to find out some more information about the suspect, but have yet to hear back. For now, reporting live here in Hollywood, Mary Beth McDade. We'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
Mary Beth, thank you.
Thank you, Mary Beth. You seem like a lovely lady. I'm sorry. I'm slap happy or something tonight. Enough for this shit.
Is behind bars accused of inciting a riot at a skating rink in Brandon. The brawl was captured on video. Deputies say it took 6 hours to de-escalate this fight. News Channel 8's George MacArthur is live at Astro Skate. George,
hey, George.
To it.
Georgia.
Stacey, deputies say during a live stream, Stephanie Pedruso offered teens money to come here to Astro Skate and cause chaos. And you might have already seen videos of what happened next. It was a brawl in several parking lots after teens were turned away at Astro Skate in Brandon. It happened on May 18th.
We have this defendant on video saying, and I quote, "I hope everyone shows up to tear this up tomorrow."
Today, Hillsborough County Sheriff Chad Chronister announced the arrest of 36-year-old Stephanie Pedruso after she encouraged people to gather at the business and create chaos.
During her live stream, that she has money and she's willing to pay individuals to come down and riot and cause destruction.
The owner of the
live stream,
Pedruso, became angry after her event was canceled because of lack of security. Pedruso then tells them she hired her own.
And at that time, she introduces her friend who's standing there with a T-shirt with the word security written across the front of it and says, I have my own private security I'll be having for that evening.
But the owners say she violated the terms of the contract and the business will no longer host the party.
Security.
Pedruso then took to social media to invite the teens to show up anyway.
During one of the large brawls that was occurring, a 16-year-old child was thrown through a plate glass window.
That's just good old-fashioned fun.
26 people were arrested, 3 adults and 23 minors. Coming up, we'll hear from the owner of Astro Skate.
So, besides being charged with inciting a riot, does the mother face any other charges?
Stacey, that is correct. She actually does. Her and her husband were charged with driving without a valid license after deputies say they were caught on surveillance video driving here to Astro Skate prior to the incident with either a suspended or suspended or not having a license at all.
All right, Georgia MacArthur live in Brandon. Thank you.
Georgia. Thank you indeed. I don't know what it is about her, but I like her. That's not the video I wanted. This isn't exactly the animal video anybody wanted, but this is what you're gonna get tonight. This is what this night deserves. Let's watch a bunny fuck up a snake. I sound like an establishment dim talking about a bunny fucking up a snake. This isn't what you wanted to. Okay, fair enough. This isn't what anybody wanted. This is what you're gonna get. Okay, yeah, that sounds like an establishment dim. Playing video game. Bunnies are cute. Apparently they're lethal to snakes. What? It's telling me to obey the rules on my fucking channel. Sock cop. A sock who is a cop. Right now, are you coming on? Do you want my peoples? You caught me right before I hit the button. Seems slightly early for me, but we came on like 2 hours early. Hell yeah, my friend. Always glad to have you lurking. We're going to head over to Andrew Shaman. Jason, have you ever met Andrew Shaman? You need to have him come on for a stoner cast. Dude's cool as fuck. If you're watching on Twitch, we're going to head over to Andrew Shaman. I don't know what he's doing tonight, but I'm sure he's going to be smoking some dabs, some weed. He's going to be doing something psychedelic. Go ahead, light one up, tip one back. It's all right to have a little fun before you hit the sack. I'm Justin Freakin. We'll see you soon. Sunday night, maybe. Possibly sooner. Who knows?